3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's Motive.
All right, we're here with Gene and Karyss. Sorry, I have a concussion. You just go on, introduce us.
We're here with Gene and Karyss. Gene, I saw you last night. Let's talk about the rap performance.
Well, jump right off.
Yeah.
You should specify. This is my daughter, by the way, my beautiful number 5. And Andrew and John, I know from her childhood, from grade 7.
I met John in grade 7. I met Andrew in grade 8, and we were friends for a couple years.
Oh, you want to get straight to the story. I was trying to stall as much as possible.
We want to give like more.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all
good. You want to get straight to the grade 7 story. Okay.
Go ahead. No. I was not going to go into stories.
Okay,
I just thought like
okay.
we should establish what our relationship is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Let's do it again.
No, it's all good.
It's your podcast, so go ahead.
Okay, yes. So, yeah, basically, we hit up Gene about 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And basically, the reason that we've wanted you guys on here is because Gene has offered us like a lot of wisdom throughout our lives and bring us to the point here. And now we feel like we're at basically like a pretty major kind of turn, moving into like new chapters. And so we wanted to reconnect and help us reassess and get some kind of wisdom to move forward. But because we're at like a pretty common place for, I'd say, a lot of guys our age, we share the same questions about what to do. We figured that it would make sense to just broadcast it to others, and they could take value from it as well. So with that, thank you very much for agreeing to come on, and as you wanted to get to for last minute, bringing on another guest. Yes, Karyss is here. Karyss is the ultimate connector. She connected me to Gene originally. And yeah, we did meet in grade 7. Shout out to Mr. Simpson.
We love Mr. Simpson.
Yes.
I went back to visit him recently.
Oh, really? How was that?
It's a great time. I told him he was one of my favorite teachers and that he taught me so much that's still stuck with me today. So shout out to him.
All right. So, yeah, I want to talk more first about the context of kind of the early days, let's say. I'm trying to think, what was so Karyss and John were in each other's class, right?
I remember
so I think you guys met first.
Yes, we did. I remember in grade 7, it was like the first day, and like we were all introducing each other. I think like Mr. Simpson had us like stand up and introduce ourselves to the class.
He did. It was an exercise. It was one of those icebreakers.
Yeah.
Share your name, things about you, your age, your family.
That was so crazy for me. Like I was like so nervous. But I remember like already people were like coalescing into groups. There was like a bunch of boys on one side of the class. Like
there was
Luca,
the typical
Ryan.
grade 7 cliques, I believe.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I did notice John right away because he was definitely the most outgoing in the class, I would say.
Really?
And I'd seen him previously. It was my first day at that school. My sister had gone there the year prior, so I knew a little bit about it. And yeah, I think we chatted. We got paired up for the first group project, and that's really my first memory, is our first project together, and both of us being leader sorts, and we bashed heads on a lot of things about the project, but because we both wanted control, but ultimately at the end, I think it came together pretty well.
This was a really cool project. It was basically like business presentation. Like Mr. Simpson was really big on these business competitions. We had like another one the same year, but it was like it was basically like we had to pretty much design like a startup idea for an app. Or like a product and etc. And we had to make like a whole presentation to like the investors, which were the classroom. So we built this whole like fanciful product called, I think it was the iBark.
It was the iBark. It was a collar for dogs to let them talk human.
Yeah, that was so good.
In retrospect, it's a great idea. I don't know if it's possible, but
we were like saying it like used AI to like and we tried to make up like the pseudoscience that made up like how the product worked. But yeah, like we had this super dope presentation, and this was before I had even met Andrew. And coincidentally, it was for like awards, and our group had won all the awards, which was like best idea, best presentation, best presenter, and then conversely, Andrew did in his class as well before we even knew each other. So that was pretty dope.
I really appreciate all the adults who kind of inflicted creativity onto me when I was younger. I think that's really important. And so you're talking about the iBark, obviously, like the methods for it were completely ridiculous, but clearly the big point of the project was to basically make something super creative.
And I think Mr. Simpson was one of the leading people at that school who was doing that. He was really invested in his students, their well-being, their creativity, and not making them feel bad for being able to take leadership or having special skills, as I think a lot of teachers don't like the standouts. They kind of want a class of quiet, competent students. But I remember him specifically being brutally honest with everyone, very direct, and just really a good person to get you started on the path you wanted to go.
No, for sure. I definitely felt, I think it was like maybe the first or second day. And I was like, I don't know, like the year before, I got really used to like a stand-up comic interject in everything the teacher was saying. And I'd make some jokes out of that. And like I guess I was being like a little too obnoxious one day. But the thing is, I don't know. I remember I just yawned and I was actually tired, but he thought I was like making fun of him, like I was going, ooh, and he, like after class he pulled me aside and he's like, John, like I know that stuff, like that delinquency stuff flied in elementary school, but you're gonna have to change for the rest of your high school. Like you can't do that. And frankly, like I was pretty like unfocused up until that point, and he, for the rest of the year, like he kept reiterating like you need to focus, and I'd attribute like all of my success to that moment, frankly, because I was such an idiot, man. I was so unfocused. I didn't care. I was trying to have a fun time, and like after that, like I was way more school oriented. And I mean, I wasn't really exposed to that in my childhood. Like I didn't really think school was anything else but to like have fun and make friends.
Yeah. He had a talent for looking at unfocused individuals and kind of getting through to them.
Yeah.
I remember that a lot of the kids in our class were like that. They were the social ones, the popular ones, but a bit unfocused. And other teachers' approach would be to be very rude. And I remember some of them were just a little too... They took it too personally, as opposed to just seeing a student who's maybe going through some stuff, and Mr. Simpson was good at cutting through that.
Yeah, I know what kind of teachers are thinking about, especially in grade 7. That was crazy.
You know, the thing with teaching too is that I'm a teacher as well by trade, and you know, when a teacher like that comes up to a student and says, "Hey, you know, this is disrespectful," you know, that's actually a really it's a loving thing, because it's not even just about tough love. But it's also because he self-respects like himself, right? It's like, this doesn't fly with me as a human being, and nor does it fly in my classroom. So, like, smarten up. I'll respect you. You respect me. Like, I love that. So, yeah.
For sure.
Kudos to Mr. Simpson.
Yeah, shout out to Mr. Simpson, man. But yeah, so I guess I would like to know what's been going on in your lives so far. So, I mean, if you want to start, Jean, like, what have you been up to? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll continue to segue into further conversation.
Oh boy. Okay. So I guess I was invited here today as the mother figure, rightfully so. So I have 6 kids. They're no longer children. My eldest is 25, just got married last year. Karyss here is number 5, and then I have a son who's 17, so number 6. And so yeah, I've been an entrepreneur for most of my adult life. Like I said, I have a degree from McGill, and I've been teaching for 25 or so years. But then always just wanting to be a bigger force in this world. I think that's always been my love, my passion, my purpose. So, you know, somebody says, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'm like, what don't I do? I'm just a type of person that likes to have a hand in so many different interests, right? Like not just professionally, but personally as well. So yes, Andrew was bringing up the fact that he and I went out last night to a rap battle, you know, I mean, you know, Ottawa, O-Town, like we call it O-Town, Ottawa. You know, we have a few gems. Yeah, we have a few gems, you know. Andrew danced for many years with my son, b-boying, breaking, and you know, so we take in the scene once in a while. It's you know, it's all good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think so mainly, you know, like educational wise, I've done documentary production. I'm a fitness and yoga instructor. I've written columns in a newspaper, so I'm a writer. I will publish a book, and I'll come back on the podcast to talk about that one.
The book review? Okay.
Yeah, but you know, I like to look at myself as something larger than just what I do for a job, right? Like I want to be somebody who's like a connector, you know, like a
I like that.
cheerleader. Like this is why I come. Like you guys are like entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs, and I'm not here to be like, well, let me teach you about entrepreneurship. I'm like, entrepreneurship is a fucking lonely road. So let me be here to make sure that you guys don't. Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
We don't swear. I mean, we don't censor that. We don't censor that.
I'm sorry. And I'm
No, don't worry about it.
I was supposed to be the adult here.
Some of the best podcasters swear to get their point across.
Yeah, of course, exactly.
You know, and I swear, like, yeah, not out of anger. It's just to make an exclamation mark. Like, it is a very lonely path. So, but I want to see you guys succeed, right? Like, and what does success mean? I don't mean just in dollar figures, and I don't mean like, you know, making impact in the world. It's like, do you feel like you have truly lived and breathed your purpose? And entrepreneurship, because you have to investigate like so deep in and so far out. Like it's kind of out and in, right? Because no one's there to tell you, hey, do this, and you know, accountability and check in on you. So you're like, you have to constantly check in with yourself and check in with others. So it's you know, it's a beautiful journey. I follow Alex Harmozy because he's an entrepreneur who says entrepreneurship is the #1 direct way for self-development, and I am like such a fan of that line.
What do you think your idea of success is?
You know, I think it's a big question, and everybody looks at it as something tangible. And for me, it's like, do I wake up in the morning excited? Not that I have to be like excited and happy every day, but am I excited to like have another day, you know, for me? And you know, when I think of success, it's not about my dollar figure. It's about, am I able to control my schedule? Like, am I able to live my day the way that fulfills me the most, right? So of course it takes money, because it's like I could be on the street and just totally like, I don't know, waste my time and I'm happy, but then it's like I have to eat. So that's not really conducting my day in a way that I want to conduct it, right? So it's like, do I have my basic needs covered? Am I able to treat other people, because I want to take them out and, you know, spend some time. I'm not going to be at the mercy of someone else's schedule all the time. And then am I able to just go to bed that night and think, okay, you know, I lived this day like the way that I would want it, like my ideal day, you know? So that's it. Success is, it's so relevant. So relevant.
Do you think there's one specific thing that if you don't check that off your list per day, that you wouldn't feel successful that day?
100% relationships all the way. Oh my God. Like all the way. And you know what? It's not even because it has to be a two-way street. Sometimes relationship is just about you. Like, have you checked in with yourself? You know, have you respected your body? Did you do something to like move it, to use the functions of it? You know, did you thank your whatever creator, you know, your mother, whoever gave you life, you know, whoever gave you life. Yeah. Did you thank them? Gratitude in yourself, just for giving you a day, right? Your life, your breath. So, those are like, it's kind of a basic, no?
Yeah.
You know, human beings, like, are only two true, like, I don't know, responsibilities. Number one, like, stay alive. So take care of your body, yourself, feed yourself, you know, and like love others, like be mindful of someone else other than yourself.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's definitely a common theme that I hear a lot about from, like, I've been interviewing a bunch of like, I would say executives and people who I look up to, looking for advice, because I've been at a point where I've wanted a lot of change and I wanted to make sure I made the right decisions. And a common theme that they always say in terms of like balance and decisions is just to make sure that you're at peace. You're always trying to get to a higher state of peace. And the reason I was asking like what specific thing, because I think that's actually intrinsic to everybody's character. Because for me, I don't feel at peace unless I've had novel and rich experiences. Like, that's what I focus on entirely. And I think there's a lot of different things and aspects of my character that play into that, like even on a more shadow side. But I optimize my life for like rich and intense experiences. So I don't know. I just think it's unique, and it's a conversation we'll probably dive into deeper later. But anyways, Karyss, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Karyss. As mentioned earlier, I'm the same age as John and Andrew, and I've known them for quite a bit of time. I've lived in Ottawa for the last 10 years, and before that, we lived in British Columbia. For the last couple years, I've been mainly focusing on the fashion industry, modeling, styling, behind-the-scenes business administration. That's really where I felt my calling was, and I definitely enjoy it. It's great to have your creative juices flowing and to feel like you're working in an industry that you feel passionate about, but also that you have talent in. Specifically, the last year, I was doing a lot of the behind-the-scenes, working online, emails, website, social media, all of the things that are up and coming in. They're a huge market for and a big demand and have a lot of potential funds. The last couple months, I decided to work on my real estate license. So that's what I'm currently doing right now with a university in Toronto. It seemed right to me to have a career that was not only credible, that you have to be licensed in, but also that you have the opportunity to make a lot of money depending on how hard you work, the connections you have, the time and sweat you're putting into it. And real estate is a great market because it's never going to go away. The demand is never going to leave. People always need housing. And if you can help someone with a huge decision, and most people's first home purchase is the biggest decision they'll make, that can feel really rewarding, as well as obviously financial compensation is a nice bonus as well. So yeah, I'm looking into doing that. I'll probably be moving to Toronto in a couple months once I finish that. And I would say that my want to do a career that's maybe not as, widely spread, I would say, or as conventional, stable, is probably from seeing my mom live the entrepreneurship life for a long time, being able to support herself and her 6 kids, and seeing that my entire life has been very inspirational and a big lesson that the conventional path doesn't work for everybody, and you can be really happy and successful in your own definition of success, doing what you want to do and doing what makes you happy. So I've also learned a lot from my siblings. Most of them are in college or school right now, and I think we all are just figuring it out together.
I'll just interject here a little bit because, mind you, my background, I'm Korean. I come from a very educational focused success definition. I was born in Seoul, but then we immigrated at 2 years old. So my parents gave up everything, like especially my dad, very successful economist, CEO of a company back in Korea, but he didn't want to see his kids suffer because the educational system is so demanding, and he had seen multiple classmates commit suicide. So that was his main reason for immigrating, was to get his 2 kids, my older brother's 3 years older, out of the school system. So anyway, so we come here, and you could imagine the pressure that I have, right? Like every class, every sport, every club, I had to be number 1. So this is the kind of upbringing I had. Then I have 6 kids, and they're all, their father is a professor, so he had to go through the PhD program and everything while we were raising kids. And then, they're all into the, like the traditional conventional route. And then here's my daughter at, number 5 coming along and be like, Mom, I decided not to go to university. And I'm like, what? Like, you can't not go to university. Like, this is, how are you going to feed yourself? So it took quite a long, but it took a lot of conversations. And for me to really explore my definition of success, trust that, you are such a intelligent, well put together, not even just intelligence, your mind, but emotionally, socially. Like, I knew you had every ingredient to be successful. I'm like, but you need that piece of paper. So here we are now, I guess 2 years, almost 2 years later, like since the graduation of high school. And I am like, you go, girl. Like, don't even step a foot into something that you don't want to do. Not that I'm saying don't go to university, but don't step into something conventional, because that's not who you are. It's never been your road. So anyway, so yes. So thank you for bringing that up, that you have chosen a path, and I'm like very, very proud of you.
Thank you. I would also like to mention, at the time of your upbringing, though, it wasn't as common to not be doing the traditional path. I really appreciate that me, Andrew, and John are growing up in a generation that is so accepting of people's specialties, limitations, wants, needs. There's never been a generation that's more accepting and has this many career paths that are not traditional. And, people are making millions off social media apps. So there's nothing that's impossible. which I think helped encourage me to choose a career of my liking.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because we know even more people who want to pursue being an artist or being a realtor or being an entrepreneur, or even like they know their discipline that they are interested in, that would typically they'd go to university, but they're not interested in kind of just taking up a regular job in it. And though on the surface the culture kind of accepts it more and more, and generationally that means parents kind of accept it more and more, or at least open their minds to it more and more. Once it comes to actually doing it, that's when shit starts to go down, and it's like it feels like with every force you get pushed back to the box. Whether it's for me, like every single thing that I do, I feel that my courses in university, they relate a lot to what I want to do outside of kind of the corporate world. Nonetheless, with everything that I do, I'm always asking myself, can this transfer into a 9-to-5 job if I need it? Like, can this build equity into a resume if I need it? And we see a lot with our other friends that they will nonetheless continue to constantly try to kind of sort of find a balance between both. Yeah. And there's a lack of risk taking there.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not to say that 9 to 5 are bad by any means. Those jobs are what keeps our society going. And for a lot of people, that's what they want. They want a stable job. They want to support their families and raise some kids. And that's a beautiful life. But I think at our age right now, because there's so much more opportunity, that's why most of the people we know want to be artists and they want to be entrepreneurs. So it's good to always have a skill or something credible to fall back on should you need to in the future.
I like you mentioning that pushback, which is something that, you know, we definitely want to talk to you about. Like, it's really important that a lot of people vet for stability, and of course, as a mother, you want safety and security for your daughter as well, and you know, you want your child to be self-sufficient, which I imagine you can expand on. And internally, like when we go about entrepreneurship, it is a huge risk, of course. But what I think though is that I think it's much more riskier going into doing something that you semi want to do or accomplish and not commit fully into something you actually want to do. And that act of balancing, having one foot in each door, results in, most of the time, I'm not saying, you know, there's some unique cases where people can do it, but if you're trying to build a resume, you know, you're probably doing things that you don't want to be doing, as in you're building things to say, bullet points. You're not focusing on things you actually love doing. And as a result, you know, if you're half-assing that and you're also not putting everything into entrepreneurship, you're not going to find success in any form in either directions, because you're just building on a horizon instead of upwards. And so I've been feeling this quite a bit lately. I've been really scared on moving forward. This summer has been probably the busiest summer of my life, busiest few months of my life. I'm working a 9 to 5, you know, of course, to pay for school and etc. And Andrew as well. Like, we both took reluctantly, spend a lot of our time on it. Of course, it's a great opportunity, and I feel so lucky. However, the connections that I've been making and the things that have been, I guess, subconsciously wired into my brain has been this idea of comfort that I'm scared of wanting continuously. And I've been wondering ways to break out of that. And what I've been thinking so much is how to make genuine and real connections. And so what I want to ask you is, or both of you actually, because I know you've also made quite a bit of connections, like, how do I go, instead of building laterally, making connections towards the path that I want to go? Because I know exactly what I want, but I have no idea how to make it, and I have an idea that I probably can't even do it here because there's not enough people. But I don't know. I'd like to hear, like, how could I maximize making my connections towards what I actually want to be doing?
I'm sure you have a lot more insight on this, as you've been in this world for a lot longer than I have. But the first thing I've learned is that every connection is an important one, even if it seems completely not in the field you're looking for, that they have no relation whatsoever. I think every connection matters. even if it doesn't matter superficially, as in they can give you a recommendation or they can lead you to someone else to help, but just in your own experience of experiencing people, experiencing bosses, experiencing what networking means and when to reach out and what to say, I think it all adds together. And as someone who recently switched completely did a 180 in the career I want to go to, that definitely reigns true, because the experience I've had from meeting people in fashion, following up with them, some of them not working out, but then also getting some great recommendations, them having friends or cousins or people they know who are in real estate, has been really surprising. And especially, I work in the restaurant industry as well. You never know who will walk through the door. So I think don't shut off any connection, or put something in between you guys. Allow open conversation, allow yourself to get to know them and what they do and who they are, because it could come back to you in the future.
Yeah, actually, that's super good insight. Like I realized that like I was in the second semester, I was kind of feeling unsatisfied. Like I was frankly getting frustrated with myself, and also like I don't know, like I got bitter. I was getting frustrated by some people around me. Like I was like working really hard, and I was seeing little progress, and I stopped seeing people. Like I became like a recluse over that entire semester. Like I barely go outside. Andrew's probably the person I talk to the most, other than my girlfriend at the time. And it was like when I came out of that, I was thinking, wow, like I could have taken great opportunity to meet a lot of fantastic people. And I learned this because at the last few days, I just attended the classes. I also wasn't attending classes because I was like, it's much more efficient and easier to be at home, of course. But what I realized is that like I didn't make the friends that I needed to make. I didn't make any good connections. And whatever connection I did have, they kind of dwindled because I wasn't there. And in a 2-day period, I realized so quickly how much I missed out. And that was such an intense dread. And that's what I feared, like that regret of not taking every opportunity that I can. But yeah, like I've made sure to take that opportunity now, and I've tried my best to reach out to as many people as I can. But now, like I've just been looking for, like, I just have this feeling that I'm like missing something. Like I'm looking for someone who can really propel me forward to what I want to do, which I'm studying I'm studying computer science, and I'm also taking a bunch of life science classes like biochemistry and etc. So I can build a foundation of neuroscience and AI, because I want to work in longevity. I think that like this is like a dogma that I've been saying. I think we're like either the last generation to die or the first generation to live forever. And I'd rather be the latter than the former. Mm-hmm. And I just haven't really met anybody like that. Yeah. So how do you think I should go about reaching out to people, or where I could even start looking?
I'm going to answer that question in twofold, because I feel like there was two separate threads here. The first one is about maybe I'll say like to be a content creator, like you mentioned more about, filling a resume and finding the right connections to get you to the next level. And so, my generation, and maybe before, we were super dependent on social systems, right? Because we didn't have access like the way you guys do. We didn't have I didn't even have a cell phone. I didn't have laptops. We don't have social media platforms. You cannot create a video unless you work in that field and you've got millions or thousands of dollars of equipment. So just the pure idea of, doing something for myself was not even there. So I think the idea of entrepreneurship during, when I was growing up, I didn't even understand that as a concept. Like the most that I could think of was a small business owner. Like my father came, there was a system where all the all the alumni from his university from Korea would put together money in a pot, and then one person would take it out at a time, which is how we bought our store. That was huge. Like that's entrepreneurship, right? So it's like you start your own business, but there was no concept of like how to create like a system beyond your own purposes. So that's a system, right? It's like micro funding, basically, micro loan funding. So anyways, but going back to the idea that you don't know, I don't know, I hesitate to say this. I don't want anyone to jump off this, but you don't almost need to depend on other people at this point in where you guys are in society, right? So you can actually be the one that determines, how do I get to the next level? How do I get to the next level for myself? And then you'll take other people with you. So what I'm trying to say is that the idea, like ideation right now, I think it's the hugest untapped industry. And I'll use a very simple example. Like, look at our movies. Everything is a cycle of stories that we had created, like in my generation and the ones before. People are lacking fresh ideas. So you're like, I don't know how to get to this next stage. Well, what are some ideas that you have for yourself to get to that next stage? What are some ideas of the kind of people that you want to be working with? Who are those kind of people? So it's almost like create your own world, own system. I shouldn't say world. We're not that arrogant. Yeah, create your own system, right? So anyways, that's just a minor point. The second thing I really want to focus more on, because you're correct, is connection, right? Because we're using about networking. We use all these fancy words, but like, what is connection to you? Like, what does connection mean, right? You go ahead, yeah.
I would say I hate like the culture around like networking and how it's like played out today, which is basically like, oh, like, hey, I know you can do this for me. Do this for me, please. And of course, to some extent, most things are transaction. And I've heard that as you get older, most of your relationships are transactionally based. And that's another thing, which I think that's like, oh, yikes. But I don't want that. In terms of my connections, like, I want genuine people who are authentic and who actually care about whatever I've sold to them as my passion, whatever I want to be doing, and they believe in the dream. I want to be surrounded by people who are equally ambitious, or they just actually believe that whatever anyone around us is doing, that it's a good thing to be working on. And I want support genuinely in that direction. And I think that's where actual connection exists. Like no way is, unless you actually have like a friend, they're gonna straight up be like, yeah, like I'll get you this job, because they don't know you. There's no credibility there. It's more like just people who align with you. And that's what I've been trying to find, and it's been so hard. Like, frankly, out of all the people I've met, and I've met wonderful people, and like there's so many people that I've met in the past few years who I have a deep love for, but I would say there's maybe like 2 people that I actually like align with fully, which is Andrew and our friend Dushan. Like, those are the 2 people that like I will be 100% real. Like, I will expect them to tell me all my flaws, critique me in full, and I also know that they believe in the dream. And I had a conversation with I had a conversation with one of my dad's friends, and he was incredibly knowledgeable, and he was also really direct, which I liked. And he told me that like he told me basically that idea, and it's so important, which is like, you have to just sell yourself purely. And I mean, I guess this is a little bit tangenting off, but I just like I want to know how I could properly sell myself in that way. I wonder, how should I go about actually making those connections? But to answer your question, like, that's what I think connections are like.
John, I would say to the first part of your story there, the type of person you're talking about definitely exists, and I've been looking for that person myself, or people. But I would say, from what I've learned, that's maybe 1% of the world, if not less. Most people subconsciously are just trying to do the best they can, are maybe struggling to just provide enough self-love, self-confidence to get through life. And that's absolutely something you can learn and something you can grow from. But I wouldn't say that most people, especially our age, are solid enough in themselves to be able to create those genuine connections and equally want success for everybody. You can have the intention of wanting success, but it's one thing to say, hey, I hope you do well in your interview, and another thing to prep you, say, let's do a practice run. What are some questions you're going to ask? Actually be invested in you and your life. And it's a very special thing when you find those connections, and I'm happy you found those 2 people, so I'd say hold on to them. And I'd also say that Ottawa is a very small pool of people compared to everyone in the world, so I'm sure you'll be able to find them more in the future. But
Yeah, I'm never losing Andrew. I'm getting married.
yeah.
He's an American
But
citizen.
I'd say in the same way you go out looking for relationships as in dating, if you go out looking for it, you're less likely to find it. But if instead you work on yourself, grow, and allow people to come to you and vibrate towards your energy, those are the people who are going to stick.
Is it possible to bring it out in people?
It is possible, but I'd say if that's not something they're already accepting of themselves, it's going to be a lot of energy on your part to try to bring that out, and B, something that won't stick, because if they're not ready to explore that side of themselves, eventually it's going to go away. It has to be a choice to want to grow and practice self-growth and practice meditation and have people you are inspired by, like Jay Shetty, like Tony Robbins. Not everyone taps into that world because they just want to do the basic and do enough for themselves right now, which is perfect. And those are the people who have the big friend groups and have the big social circles, because that's the 99%.
Jean, I know you're very well connected, and in a way where, like in a holistic way, you're a person who kind of, you've got the phone book. You could call anybody anytime if you need anything. You're like, I can call this person, and they'll do it just out of kind of like pure, genuine love for you. So, how do you, like, what's your perspective on, let's say, your life in making connections and kind of bringing it out in people versus finding the right people?
Yeah, so let's go back to the whole idea of connection, right? Like, I think that's really I think that's what I'm trying to say. Like, you know, what is your reason for connection? That's what it is, right? If I am looking at somebody as a resource, as like someone who can serve me in some capacity that I might need, they're no longer a human being, right? They're a commodity, really. So that's why I think, you know, if you're gonna connect, if you want connection, first and foremost, you gotta know yourself. You gotta love yourself. You gotta be someone, something, a force, an energy that is already connected within itself, and that it's gonna be like, you know, energetic, attractive for someone else to want to connect to. So that work is missing. That work is missing in most people. So I don't think that there's a lack of people who can't, you know, that 1%, that they can't be the 1%. They just don't have, I don't know what ingredient is missing. Self-love, maybe? I would almost say self-love.
That's really powerful. And I saw you like really pay attention when he said bring it out of people. So do you think you could bring it out of people? Do you think you bring it out of people?
Well, you know, the more that I don't want to say give to myself, because it's so quaint. Like, the more that I explore myself, that is so attractive to other people, which is why I think that magnetic force comes towards me. It's like, oh man, she's doing some really special inner work, you know? I want some of that. Why? Because you uncover humanity, right? That's what it is. Little kids don't need to do some long meditations and journaling, and I mean, you know, they don't need to do that because they're just pure in themselves, right? They haven't been tainted, I'll use that word strongly, they haven't been tainted yet with the expectations of the world and the systems and society's greed, right? They're just happy. Like, we talked about this morning. We're like, why can't we just go up to somebody and say, I like you, let's be friends? Like,
that's how it was in grade 2. And since then, there's all these social politics and questioning and everything.
Like, what happened to that? What happened to that, you know? So I think, like, once we revert back to our inner child, our childlike ways, and we just say, you know what, I like myself. I like my own company. You know, if I want to do it, I'm going to do it. There's no sort of judgment, fear. Then I think when people see that in you, then they also want to connect with you, right? And now the connection turns into synergy. It turns into relationship, right? But I equally value my relationship with myself as I do others.
Mm-hmm. So you could say that the answer to the question is, yes, you can bring it out in people, but only by means of self-love and focusing on yourself. Not so much the intention of pulling that out of someone. Could you say that?
Yes.
That's probably right.
Yes, very much. But I think also how it is brought out from other people is that because I like myself, I pay attention to myself, and that's body, mind, and soul, right? Because I do that for myself, I have room to focus on someone else, right? If I am looking at every human being around me as a way, and maybe it's mostly subconscious, as a way to affirm in me what I don't like, what I don't know. So I'm kind of using you to get to know myself. And that is it's true that we need each other to know ourselves, of course. Babies need adults, their mom, their older siblings, to sort of like, how do I do that? So of course we need each other to grow and to know how to do things, but that's not the focus. Like, I'm not using you to grow or to know how to do something. It's that I am so invested in being the best version of myself that you are just but you are you're an addition, right? Therefore, I can also focus on you and say, and just like not have to feel a lack in myself, and therefore I focus on you. Like, do you see that there's a difference, right? Yeah.
No, absolutely. Like I absolutely agree with seeing other people as an additional subjective experience that you can apply to yourself. And we talk about like the idea of everyone being on the same progression and being able to learn from other people indirectly. And like I think I do this all the time, which goes back to what you were saying on reverting the indoctrination that we've been exposed to, as sort of like I have ongoing questions all the time about like things that I'm wondering about, which I had to have developed after years and years of having my creativity killed by, like, I would say high school and etc. But like, I remember distinctly as a kid, like seeing things and then thinking about whatever my context was and applying it backwards that way. And like, I hadn't done that my entire life until up until like the past few years, where like I would, again, it would be like play, talking to people, and that's where the joy came out of it, because I would be so happy for not only to learn from other people's experience, but I would have a direct application. I'd be wondering like, like, oh, do I do something that's standoffish? Do I communicate effectively? What is not getting through to these people? Or on another token, like, why is this person so inspiring to me? Why are they so encapsulating? Why am I so interested in whatever they're gonna say next? Which is like that's what I was thinking about bringing it out on people. It's that, like, I think there's two polar opposites in that case, where there's like someone who is incredibly authoritative and imposing and essentially trying to push that idea back onto you. And that is a really powerful but I think dangerous way to bring that out of people. And this is something I've been really trying to come to terms with in my head, which is that you can't really save everybody. You have to do things out of inspiration, not expectation. And that goes towards whoever you want to be surrounded with as well. Like, people should be inspired by the things you do. You can't save them. They don't want to be saved, as Dave Cole said. And I've wondered, like how can I create that culture for myself? As you said, building, I think that was incredibly powerful, talking about building your own systems. And I don't even know how to go about doing that for myself, because there are a lot of things that I wish, like I have a way that I want to do things, but I feel like I have no dominion over those things. So how do you think I could inspire people to be a part of whatever vision I have for my life?
I think at the end of the day, the only commitment you have is to yourself. This idea of this savior complex, a lot of us have it naturally, especially as kids. You're like, you want to help everyone around you. You want everyone to just be full of love and full of happiness. And it's a very natural thing. I think it's a personality thing too. But, it's like what that quote was. It's like, not everyone wants to be saved. And I think that's true for most of us. If someone comes up to you and says, your system doesn't beat my system, like, I have a good way to do this, guys, here's all this information, here's all this wisdom, let's just like all partake in it, you would think that that's a good way to get the world to come together. But I think in the end it doesn't, because we are all different humans at the end of the day. And if you're doing your part, as in spreading wisdom, as you're on this podcast, telling people about things you've learned, recommending books, telling them about your ideas and your inspirations, that's already doing a huge task and a huge job for people, and it's they probably appreciate it, because it's like not everyone will be willing to do that for them. But after that, you have to just let it out of your hands, because that's something that's going to keep feeling heavy, is I'm doing all these things but nothing seems to be coming back to me and people don't seem to be taking it in. At the end of the day, you can only control yourself. So I think the fact that you guys are doing this podcast and you are attempting to make people our age aware of these kind of things is really powerful. But you know, it's going to be, again, the 1% who latches on and really gets inspired and really wants that information to take in.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
How do you embrace then, or can you embrace the perspective of others when you're building your own system? Because you talk about knowing yourself and how the more you know yourself, the more you're seemingly able to connect with others. But when it comes to when you kind of face a battle between the outside world and yourself, is it a matter of making yourself stronger in your own view of yourself, or your own understanding of yourself, or is there somewhere that like we're missing an alignment in those? Can you speak to that?
I think it's easy to cerebrally think that we are all humans and we all have a human experience, right? Similar human experience. But I mean similar human experience and similar human need. So, but the thing is, you only, and Karyss, I reiterate what you said, we only are responsible for ourselves, right? And I know I don't think we can drill that enough in us, because we are creatures of distraction, right? Anything that's shiny or anything that's like, if something gets hard internally, what do? You go out, you go externally, right? So, I find that, we have these contemplatives in our world, right? Monks and, monks, but in all different kind of traditions, right? Writers, like, we kind of understand these kind of people who have the courage to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, right? Now, if they don't share their journeys with other people, does it make their journey less valuable, right? I mean, that's what I think I would argue. I'm like, absolutely not, because they are putting a force into the energetic field, which I believe we're all part of one big field. So they're putting that out there. Why? In order for truth to be prevailed, right? And that's a very capital T truth. It's like something that we can't touch. We can't, what's the word? Navigate. Like, we can't control. So, so going back to your question, Andrew, like, of course, we want people to be in alignment with us. We want people to recognize us. We want people to agree with us. How is John going to create a system by himself? So I think really, like, if you have the belief that what you put out in the world, it's going to be powerful, despite it's seen, recognized, just like I said, a monk's monastic life is very hidden, private, right? If you truly believe that, you will continue, and your consistency, it's actually going to be your success story. It's the consistency. It's putting in a little bit. It's like you're the person who puts a penny into your bank account every day. One day, someone's going to discover, like, oh my God, he's got $1 million in there. But nobody will see all the pennies being put in, right? So it's the consistency. That's the key.
Yeah. And I would argue that this sense of needing to share every thought, every feeling with the world comes from social media, especially
Twitter
apps like
fingers.
Twitter, absolutely, Instagram. This is what I'm doing. This is who I'm with. This is what I'm happy about and what I appreciate in my life. And the sense of oversharing, I think, has really taken control of this generation, because like my mom said, doing something but not anyone knowing about it doesn't make it less valuable. And I think you can see the discrepancy between people who do things for themselves and people who do things for other people. And I would use religion as an example. There's people as in monks, or just people who pray and practice religion. They take their communion and they do their prayers and they're very content with it. And then there are people who almost make a stink about people who do not believe in that, who don't partake in their ideas and their beliefs. And, you know, they're probably going to spend their life sharing those beliefs and getting frustrated that it's not reiterated. But that doesn't make them any closer to what they believe than the person who does it silently. So, like I said before, I think this idea of wanting to share is really good and very inspirational for some. But, you know, if not everyone takes it in and is willing to partake in that certain idea or belief, that doesn't make what you believe any less important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think what needs to be I'm thinking of a word, but I think what needs to be identified is authenticity. What I've seen so much, and actually just anyone, is that there's a stark difference between people who are genuinely trying to push their vision out there, not out of any sort of insecurity or, you know, superficial basis. They just want to put whatever they're doing out there. And I think regardless of how much makeup people are putting onto their ideas and their stories and whatever, like most people, and I think everyone, even if they don't notice it, like subconsciously, we can all smell bullshit. And when people post on social media, and like I think LinkedIn is a great example for this, because like you look on LinkedIn and it's like, oh, like, hey, congratulations to me, I just got a FAG internship with 14 million base comp, like stuff like that. Like that just sounds like nobody wants to actually see that. And it's like, it's disingenuous because you're basically like, look at me, I'm flexing, I'm better than you. And stuff like that, you know, like I agree, like that, like it's not even that it shouldn't be shared. It's just that the way that people go about doing anything really should just be genuine and authentic. And that's what I've been really observant on. And when you talk about magnetism, I think it is those people who just have that aura of pureness, as you said, with as like a child. They just have pure wonder or enthusiasm about whatever they're trying to build, and capturing that has been so enthralling to me. Like just being able to be that guy who has a vision and it would like you to be a part of it, but it's just out of like, hey, like we could do this, guys. And that's how I envision it. Like I say that like with not like intense language, because that's exactly how someone like that would say it. You know what I mean? Like, hey guys, like let's do it. Like you guys want to be a part of it? And that's what I've been trying to look for. And I wonder if you could identify like exactly what those traits are in those kind of people, when it's just pure human experience that they're exhibiting through whatever they do.
Let me just share a personal story because it'll speak to a little bit of the things that we've been talking about.
Of course, love to hear it.
So in university, I discovered faith, like religion actually. I became a Christian, like a born-again Christian. And then I became president of like the largest Christian student group at McGill. So there was a lot of evangelization, a lot of that kind of teaching and doing. And I actually had a really interesting talk with the Catholic priest on campus, because I was kind of like, what's different about where we stand and where you guys stand. Anyway, so I started connecting with all the other religious groups, including then the Muslims. And okay, anyways, it doesn't matter. But I think what I'm trying to say is that when I first started to find my purpose or reason in the world, I went to like spiritual source right away. So everything to me felt like it had to be mass shared, right? Like it was not good enough for me to be, I don't know, my own, like, it's just my own belief system, or everything had to be very public, and it had to be like a wildfire that would like spread across the world. So much so that I switched in my program, because I said, how am I going to get into these like very, Muslim countries or countries that are under like, dictatorship? I need to go into these countries and spread the gospel, right? This was my thinking. So as I progressed into adulthood, then I found love in university, got married, and I started having children. And it was like, now how am I going to go and travel in the world and, save all these souls? Like, because I've got little babies that need me, and, I have to stay home now. And I went back to that same Catholic priest that I had that conversation with years earlier. And he said something that just really changed my life, I think, because he said, listen, your mission field is now your family, is now your home. So as much love and vision that you would have put into saving the world, put it in your family, because this is your mission. So then now fast forward, we're doing 16 years of being completely private, behind the scenes, living the quietest life that I've ever lived in my entire life. And I was miserable. It was a friggin' hard.
You think he gave you bad advice?
16 years. So let me rephrase miserable. I loved my kids.
Of course.
I loved being a mom, but it was a very quiet life. I was not, I mentioned the presidency because it was front and center, constantly giving talks and come on guys, I'm evangelizing, right? So I'm also pumping everyone up. I had a whole community, right, that I was responsible for, but then also I'm trying to grow, and it was very public, let's say. This is a very private and non-recognized, field, is a stay-at-home mother. And I was stay-at-home full-time. But wow, I needed this to become who I am today, because I would not have ever gone so deep within myself. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning just to have some reflection time because my life was so busy. That required sacrifice, but it required a real will. I am not going to lose this opportunity just because I have these responsibilities and I'm in this very hidden life. So I think this is why I'm speaking out of experience, going internally to preserve yourself, to grow yourself, to value yourself, all my ideas, everything I believed in. I didn't have a platform to give that to the world anymore. Now, of course, I had my kiddos, I could, evangelize them, but, even kids, right? They don't want to be preached at by your mother, in whatever way, never mind religion, but everything else, how to brush your teeth and all that good stuff. Anyway, so I bring this example up because I think I just really want to reiterate the importance of, you being the center of your universe, of your stage, of your classroom. You have to be that person that is so fulfilled and so motivated to save yourself, preach to yourself, grow yourself, develop all of this. And I know it. I don't know. I hope it doesn't sound too theoretical, because
this is what we love.
Yeah, because it is very a practical thing, because it requires planning. It requires time management. You have to will it. That's why I mentioned I had to set my alarm 3 a.m. to wake up, to spend time with myself. I was a relationship too, right? My body is a relationship. How do I even not even exercise, just move, beyond chasing little kids? How am I going to feel my creativity? I had to create opportunities to still, I was a dancer, right, my whole life. I had to still create opportunities to dance. Can we do that in the kitchen while I'm cooking? Was that for them? No, it was for me.
Did you dance in the kitchen?
Absolutely. They remember.
We all dance during dinner time.
Yeah.
We have a lot of home videos of that.
Oh, that's so wholesome.
So you just put it in, right? You put it into your life, right? Okay, so fine. So fast forward again. I got into the whole yoga world. And one of the philosophies of yoga that I'm so grateful for in my life is this idea of karma, right? And everyone understands karma to be what you put out is what you get back, right? So that is partly true, but it's specific to relationships. So if you are somebody that, I don't know, needs to suffer, let's say, and whatever suffering means to you, that needs to suffer for you to level up in your next awareness of self, damn me if I come along and try to take that away from you, to try to lighten the load, to try to save you from that suffering. Then my karma like if I try to take away your karma, like your ability to like put out and what will come back to you, in this case, suffer so that you can grow. If I interfere with that process, then I'm like punished, right? It's my punishment and your punishment because you've lost out the opportunity. But anyway, so that concept totally destroyed this like savior mentality for me, because no longer did it become, how do I save you? What do I do for you? How do I serve you? It's like, oh damn, me sometimes interfering with that process is actually not serving you at all. So, you know, again, when I think about this whole idea of, you know, bringing people under your system, working with people, connecting with people, just let it be. They'll come to you. They'll come to you. You don't need to force anything, anyone, grab people, use people, like none of that. It's too much energy. Like, just take care of you. That's enough. That's a lot. And you have your buddy here, you know. They always say sometimes your ideas, as the creative ideas and the pioneer, they're like, you're crazy. But then the second person comes along. I think I've heard this. Second person comes along and goes, hey man, your idea is good. They're the ones that will be bringing your crowd and your system. They're the ones that will come because the second person affirmed you. You already got your second person. And a third, your system's going to come. Your tribe will come.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess, like, I think I've been, like, leaning towards that. And I worry about the nuance because I guess, like, I've worded it before as though, like, I believe, you know, whoever does exist out there, they're in, like, a tight-knit circle and, like, or maybe they haven't even found it. And I'm trying to put so much energy trying to focus on these small details so that I can optimize to bring all these people in and put myself in those better positions. And whoever's with me, I get to go up and they can come with me. Like, I literally imagine it as like this secret club that I have to change myself wholeheartedly and universally so that I could be adequate for that. But what I realized, and while I definitely believe that does exist, not in the sense that like we're all the same, or rather they just perhaps align more. I think that like any sort of magnetism or anything that remotely resembles bringing people in is in part onto their own will. Like, well, 100% has to be. Like, and that's what I struggle with because it's like, man, like, where are they? Like, I just want to look and I wanted them to come in with me. But of course, like, it really is just like, it really just is like, I guess, you know, the flow of the river. You bump into them and then suddenly like, oh, hey, like, I guess we're on the same page now. And I'm like focused so much on that idea of like, I guess, pushing the river to flow faster. So focused on getting to that as fast as I can. Because I mean, like, for me, like, any existentialism comes from the idea that like, if I want to help everybody live forever, then I feel like I have a pretty big responsibility to get that as fast as possible. But like, yeah, I've been leaning towards like the idea of just like whatever magnetism that I do have, it has to be out of just my own vision, my own work, whatever I've actually built.
To respond to a couple of your points, I think we could take a page out of the book of people we look up to. And I keep saying Jay Shetty, but I just love him so much. I think the first thing you would say is that things take time, way more time than we think they will. And that's something I've had to swallow the hard pill because I, too, I'm impatient and I want things now and I want this amazing circle of people. But he says things take time. He's only in his 30s and I'm sure he knows he has a long way to go and he's come a long way. He was a monk for maybe 9 years. That's a long time to take away from society. So I would say this idea of pushing the river may not be possible as much as I would love it to be. And I think the second thing he would say is that the people in your life now not necessarily aren't going to be there in the future, but if you hold on to them too tight, they may not be there in the future. Because he said he found his wife a bit later in life, I believe.
They knew each other as kids in their youth group.
Yeah.
And then they came back later on together.
Yeah. And I think
that's so cute.
I think that time away was allowing him to grow and become a man and be himself and everything. But I think if he had tried to keep each other in our life desperately, they may not even be where they are now because they had to take time away, learn about themselves, let themselves become equals. She has her own thing going on. She has a book coming out. And I saw this quote one time, or this analogy to was if you chase a bird, it's only going to fly away. But if you sit where you are, enjoy your lunch, they'll start slowly inching towards you eventually to take part of your lunch. And you could think about your ideas and beliefs. People will be attracted to, they will come to you and maybe want a piece of what you're having, or maybe they'll just snatch the entire thing. You never know. Birds do that too. But if you're wanting them so much that you're chasing after them, they're just going to fly away. I thought that analogy made a lot of sense.
No, it does. And you actually don't understand how much that's been applying to my life lately. Like,
And I'll affirm that even more, this whole idea that you two are pushing of becoming stronger and stronger in your own prerogative and such. You had mentioned that you started to dance in the kitchen, and then I remembered that as a kid, one thing you really value is seeing your parents do things for themselves. And that's things that you start to actually take, and you're like, oh, that's important.
No, that's absolutely something that just gave me so much confidence growing up, was seeing my mom be confident in herself. And I think, you know, a lot of kids have parental pressure, and not necessarily imposed pressure as in get this degree, get this job. It's more so parents without realizing can transfer a lot of their trauma, their stress, their worries onto their kids. And I think we've always had really clear communication and clear boundaries about that. And in similar to the thing we were just talking about, keeping people in your life you're in the entire time, I don't think we're close because we're purposely keeping each other close or saying we are in each other's lives. We are not going to change that. I'm going to keep, like, stay with me. It's more so we're both doing our thing, growing, learning, pursuing what we like. And it just so happens that because we're both in the same stage of life, that's why it works so well. And the flow is good and it feels natural, it feels magnetic. So yeah.
Now you guys have opened up the parenting question here.
Yeah,
and just relationship question.
Which I guess I can maybe just touch on it so that it will relate back to relationships and connections and whatnot. But, you know, they always say, what's the best parenting advice ever? And especially for moms, this is where I always say, but it is that, you know, have fun with yourself. And I know that's so easy to say, but it's so hard to do. And the reason you do that is because if you depend on your kids to be your fulfillment, your entertainment, your emotional support, like, you know, your reason for being, you know, raison d'être, all that, what ends up happening is that your kids will have a huge burden on their shoulders. Because now the focus becomes your mom. How do we keep mom happy? How do we make sure that mom is taken care of, you know, emotionally, like physically, whatever? So how do we leave the house? Because what's mom going to do? Like, she has no identity. She can't. So I understand now, like, why it was so important for me. Because, you know, again, Korean background, it's like you give up everything for your kids, right? Like, women especially are like kind of non people after you get married, because you're supposed to serve your husband, you're supposed to serve your kids. Like, I mean, the best thing that an, you know, Ivy League, like an equal in Korea, the best thing that a woman can do after her kids and husbands are at school and at work is that they go to the spa, because they don't have anything else that they're pursuing in their life, and all they can do is serve their kids. So again, it's you know, I know I keep I'm staying on this thing, like, just keep focused on yourself, because I think that we are so we're so trained that it's selfish, it's self-centered if you think about yourself, and I do think that our society has gone that way. But the reason why there's a difference between self-love and sort of self-serving in a selfish manner is because when you feel like you are enough onto yourself in every capacity, right? Like, it's not that you can't, it's not that, you know, like, I can do things for myself, yes, obviously, but it's like, you know, I don't need anybody else. I don't need someone to, you know, help me. I don't want to accept things from people. Then that's not being self-loving. That's just being an island unto yourself. Like, that's being non-human again, because we're meant to be social creatures, right? So I think that, you know, there is a fine line. So when I say, make sure that you are giving, then, make sure that it's like something that you, okay, how do I not self-sustaining? That's probably the wrong word, but make sure that it's in a way that gives life to yourself so that life overflows and other people want to be part of it and they come to you for it. It's like that good water,
Yeah, the bitter filter. I like that.
How do you sustain that in moments where your responsibilities begin to seem to like mount over you?
Ask for help.
Mm.
Ask for help.
Simple.
Yeah, it's simple, but we're so proud, right? Like we're so
yeah.
This goes back to what we were saying
You're
about
right.
the kid thing. When you're a kid, you could be like, I like you, be my friend. Okay, great. We used to be like, Mom, my knee hurts. She gets a Band-Aid. And as we've grown older, these social boundaries just overtake us and we can't ask for help even when we need it. And I think that's why there's such an emphasis on these suicide helplines. Like, it shouldn't be this difficult to be like, hey, I'm not doing okay. I need some help. I'm struggling. Even if it's not something that serious, just like, hey, I had a bad day. This communication between people, I feel like, is being cut, and people are keeping to themselves more and more, especially after COVID. There's just no flow of communication, and that really limits our connection as well, because it's like, if you don't communicate, how can you connect? How can you better know one another? How can you better help one another? So, yeah, I think that's very right. Just be honest with where you're at, with the people, trusted people around
So you would say it's an act of self-love to ask for help when you're incapable.
Yeah, and how will people know what you want or what you think unless you ask, right? I think this is just such a basic communication tool. Like,
But we've lost it.
oh my God, 100% we've lost it. We're so, like, how do we ask without either sounding needy or, oh, maybe even greedy? Like, how do you ask that? And of course, a person has every right to say no, but you got to ask them. They have to know what it is that you want, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of shame, and despite all the like acceptance speech that we hear all the time, like I feel like people still write that off. Like, I still feel so much shame asking for help or feeling like, or like admitting like that I've had any flaw at all. And irregardless of like all these like support systems that they have, it's if anything becoming more intrinsic in our culture to be self-sufficient. And like you said, like we want to come across as like genuine and real, but keeping it real is a risk of feeling that shame. But I think we just have to learn to look past that fear anyway. Like, that's been something that I've had to learn so much over the past few years, just to like stop having any, I guess, embarrassment for whatever I'm feeling. And that has been the most powerful thing, like, which is something that I hear is like, it's like a constant wisdom that people reiterate, which is like, don't give a shit at what anyone thinks of you. But I think like the quickest way I learned that was when like people say it all the time, but they don't really internalize it. And I internalized the idea that genuinely nobody is thinking about you. And if they do, it's for like split second, and they don't care about the specifics. And when I've like felt that, because I was like, oh wait, I think about it myself all the time. Why would anyone think about me? It felt really refreshing, you know. And that's like, I think it makes it a lot easier, because once you take yourself, it's not like don't take yourself seriously in the sense of like don't respect yourself. It's just that like, just have fun, And I try to have fun as much as I can.
Andrew, earlier you asked me like what it is that, you said, oh, I've got all these connections, that I can have all these people that I can call up if I need something. And so I do know there was sort of like a before and after. So when I was younger and I was very like, I don't know, I felt myself very competent and capable, right? It was so important for me to always be at the service of everybody else. Like, what is it that you need? And I was very quick to like give them everything, my time, my resources, So I can see that I knew a lot of people and had a lot of people at my fingertips, whatever you want to say, because I served them. Now it's so different. Now it's that I actually allow, sometimes I don't ask, but sometimes they offer and I just go, oh, thank you. Like, I allow people to give to me. And it's such a huge gift. I don't know what the word is. It's a gift, Because if I'm like, I got this, I don't need, no thank you. Like, how is there going to be any kind of connection and relationship built? Like, does it always want to come from one side? And maybe what then is that maybe I attracted more people who are needy. And now I'm attracting people who are like next level and super competent, and I'll take it all, But it's a two-way street, of course, right? It's not like
Do you think that I've felt that sense, like, now, like, I have to show as many people as I can that I have value. Do you think that there's a time in our life where we have to focus on just that, where we have to provide as much value as we can so we can establish ourselves and make those connections? Or do you think in my 20s I should go about it a different way?
So let me go back to like self-value, because I think that my motivation when I was younger to be super overachiever and be very competent to serve other people, that came from me not valuing myself, because I wasn't enough to myself. I wasn't enough to just take up space in this earth and breathe the oxygen. It's like I had to almost earn my reason for being alive, right? That's a very deep thing that I had to be aware of. And now it's like, yeah, I mean, I was given life, and thank you and amen, and that's it. So I don't feel this perpetuating need to like earn, right? It's to strive. So yeah, now I'm good. Like I'm chill. You give to me, I give to you. Like there's nothing I have to prove anymore.
Do you think that surety is something you can get in your 20s, or is that just life experience, age, and accomplishing things?
Is it an age thing? Okay, so very practically, with more experiences, you do feel more competent, I guess, right? So it's not that you can't feel chill in your 20s. But but no, you should be hungry. You should be hungry in your 20s. And like I just turned 50 this year. I'm super hungry. I'm like more hungry than I was in my 40s. I don't know. So yeah, I want more experiences. I want to grow my competencies. I want to, deepen my service ability. Deepen my service ability for myself, and then others will be served in the process. So yeah, I don't think it's an age thing.
Do you think that, so what I'm getting at here is that you shouldn't serve people for the sake of serving, but what I'm wondering is like my approach towards my career and how I should build the foundations, because like for all intensive purposes, whatever I want to be doing requires immense amount of capital. Like whatever I'm building towards, hopefully I could make it like by I'm 25, but I'd have to have a lot of resources to go about doing that. Like, how do you think I should focus on building the foundations to getting there? Because that's really where I'm at right now, just setting the stage as to what paths I can take later on in the future. How do you think, like where, well, I guess, do you want me to give more context so you can actually do real life coaching, or?
I think that's a good general question, and a lot of your viewers probably question the same thing. Is like, I have these big dreams and goals, but no money, no resources, and no real education. So it's like, can you achieve these things without those, or are those what you're supposed to be building in your 20s?
What's the strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think then I go back to this whole idea of ideation, right? That really is your number one tool, weapon, in every area. So it's like, then go back to my evangelizing, desire. You really have to get people on board with your idea. I think that's really what it is. Like there is always money to be made and had and accessed, right? So if you're so stuck on the how, you will totally lose your why, right? So you got to stick to the why and get people on board with the ideas that you have, because I think that is actually your moneymaker. It's not and I know like practically you need money. Like I get it, but you can hire people to get you money. Like the money is not it's not going to be your make it or break it. It's going to be your idea. What is it that and the thing is, you may not have a very clear and detailed I guess, you know, not business proposal, like it's too, not a business plan, but you know, you have a general idea of what you want to do, but I think it's like you have to keep journaling, keep talking about it, get synergy, get other people to be involved. You need to create the culture of this idea more than you have to look at the how-tos, right? How am I going to get money? How am I going to start a bank fund? How am I going to, you know, because once you hit someone like a Richard Branson, man of great ideas, and he like just jumped on every idea, and every entrepreneur who is like super rich and famous now all said one person came in and just funded everything. Like there's always this magic person who has funds because they may have resources, but they don't have the idea, right? So he always pitched this idea, no matter how crazy they were. He wrote in the student newspaper his ideas. Like he talked to anybody and everybody who would listen. It's the ideas that got him ahead.
He got the funding eventually, but beforehand he had to do the consistency, put in the work, have a million unsuccessful pitches before he finally got his funding. What, in your experience, is that number of doors you have to open? Is it a limited amount? Is it a minimum amount? Like, do you try something, just keep going and going and going, and eventually decide, you know, I'm going to switch to something else? Or do you think if your idea is powerful enough, you should just keep going with it until it happens? Because practically, you need a house, you need a job, you need money, you need to have like, you know, so.
Separate your mind, I think, you know, separate your mind from something practical. Like, yes, I need to eat. So go waitress. Like, you know, like you can think this way, right? This is very dry cut. The other side is the creative side, right? The other side is trying to distill what it is that you are truly trying to get at, like the gem of it, right? So, you know, what was your question? Like you mentioned something. What was your question right now, you said?
I said, is there a maximum amount of doors you should
Thank
open?
you. Okay, so of course there's no magic number, but the attitude of how many times you have to fail is this. So let's say you have a magic number. Like on my 100th door that I knock, it's going to be that person that says, here's a blank check. Okay, so how do you approach the 99 doors beforehand? It's like, I'm so excited to knock on this one because it's one less that I have to get to the 100th. So let's go. Like that's the energy you want to bring, right? So I have heard so many entrepreneur stories, like 184. There's a woman who approached 90 companies. Like on her 91st company, she was granted like $3 million bang. Like you're going to hear it, the number's not important. It's like, and the other thing is, you know, you have to have grit. It's true. Like you have to keep going with the consistency if you believe it. But I think more than just the grit, because you're not going to live 10 years of just suffering. Like that's not fun. Why would you want to give up 10 years of, you know, excitement, of flow, just to get like, you know, that 100th door. And then you're like, okay, now I can, you know, be a successful entrepreneur. No. So the 10 years that it takes you to knock on 99 doors, you want to be like, oh yeah, like I'm going to go and rip this one, knowing you're going to fail, right? It's the energy you bring to the failures. So I would just focus more on that. Focus on the energy, not the number, not the time.
This is like the dilemma of the entrepreneur, which is like, you know, you're never guaranteed how much time it is to take, but that's that one question of like, or that one fact that we just have to make it once, and we're set for life. Like, and I think that's what everybody has to go through internally, because you could go, as you said, 10 years without any sense of security, but that one moment could exponentiate the rest of your life fully.
Well, at least it'll start you off.
I would disagree that it's like, one for your life, because if you've done 99 doors, after you get 100, it may be good for a while, but you're going to want to do another 99. You're never going to stop. You're going to keep growing, keep doing new books, new podcasts, learning new things, and still educating yourself. I really believe that.
And this is where the problem of clarity and conviction in your mission comes in, because I adore your sentiment about pursuing every door, knowing that it's another one to get through, and that's why you need to be excited about it. And this is what I mean when I ask you about if you have like any wisdom. This is an example of it, of embracing kind of embracing things that seem to be like nuisances on the side in a way that actually ties them to your mission in like a very aligned way. That's a perfect example of that. But if I am to do that, then to have conviction of my mission at the very start, it needs to be clear. And a lot of times it can be quite simple because you can look to somebody else and say, I want to be just like that person. But you're talking about how, well, then you go to the next thing. So something that I struggle with a lot is like the shiny object syndrome. You could say that, looking in different directions. But also I come to think that part of it is that I'm not able to kind of, like literarily write out what it is exactly that I'm looking to achieve.
Yeah.
Do you mind if you could relate the entrepreneur syndrome or lifestyle to just dating and that and relationships and that kind of thing, because like you said, the shiny object, every new person walks in the door, you give them a chance, you have a couple months, you don't really get anything out of that except experience, which is still very valuable. Pursuing new opportunities, especially if it's something you're really interested in doing, absolutely, even if it doesn't work out. And similar to what we said before, once you get that 99th door, maybe that perfect person in your life who you're like, wow, like you have everything I'm looking for, and we have support, we have love, we have chemistry, that still doesn't stop. It still keeps going. And it's still, there's new challenges to arise. There's new fights to have. There's new great relationship experiences to have too. So if it's kind of this ongoing thing, I guess my question to you is, how do you keep the energy for it? And how do you keep the motivation for it?
I love the analogy of dating your business, like entrepreneurship. I love that. That's
you
exactly
love them,
it.
you hate them, it goes
Yeah.
up and down.
Yeah, it's true. And as far as the energy goes, I mean, that's what I mean. Like, it's got to be your energy for life, right? You have to be the person who wakes up every morning and be like, another day, yay, for whatever that day gives you, right? Failures, discouragement, like it's a journey. This is our life, right? Entrepreneurship is not a thing. It's not a job, right? It's a lifestyle. It's a life, motto. Like you do it because this is who you are. That's the basic of it. Not everyone's called to be an entrepreneur. 100% we're not. We totally respect government workers who like want just the stability, give to society, pay their mortgages. Like, you know what? That's all good. It's not us. That's not who we are.
Yeah.
And that's part of your calling, but it's also part of your, well, I'll use cross, but it's part of your suffering. It really is. It's the hardest road. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Yeah.
And it's entirely existential, and that's why there's so much suffering, because you're essentially having like an internal battle always with yourself. Even if you found and identified what you want to do, like, I mean, for me, like, I question all the time, like, do I want to do this out of the idea that this would look good for other people? Do I do this out of my innate desire for legacy? What am I actually trying to achieve with this? And you have to do a lot of digging internally to figure out exactly why you want this, exactly what it is you're doing and what you're trying to create in the world. And that's, I think, where the energy comes from. Like, you will have so much struggle trying to push yourself to any sort of limit when you have not identified yet what it is you're trying to give yourself to, because why the hell would I basically cut off or sacrifice any part of my life if I have no idea what I'm even building towards? And I don't even know if that thing is going to be valuable at the end of it. Why would I do anything incredibly risky if at the end of it I am almost guaranteed unsatisfaction? And for one, I just want to take a quick side note. For one, like, this is like, dude, I love the sound of your voice, bro. Yeah, I just love the sound of your voice. But I was also gonna say,
we'll get you those headphones next time as well.
Yeah, it's so nice. But I was also gonna say, like, I really appreciate how timeless the nature that we're talking about. You said earlier, like, you don't want to be like theoretical. Like, the abstract and general advice is the timeless advice that is incredibly valuable across time. It's so interesting having conversations like these. And I mean, like, in terms of getting energy to what you want to be doing, like, it really is something existential, and that's why a lot of people impart their reason to their kids, and that's why, like you're talking about the priest who said your value is on your kids. Like, when he told you that, you went a lot of suffering, because that's not what you wanted to live for. You didn't want to live for just having kids. Like, is this really all I am for? Just to
Exactly.
reproduce? And
Yep.
I think more and more now we've identified that, like, no, we shouldn't do that exclusively, and especially women. That's why birth rates have gone down incredibly in the Western world. Like, there's more to life than just having kids.
Also, inflammation and not being able to raise a 6-kid family anymore.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, like you know, that's why I think in terms of people who haven't like discovered anything that, you know, and this is something I actually wanted to ask you about, but like in terms of discovery, like you just have to take a lot of risk and you have to go look for a lot of things. You got to build laterally until you find exactly what you want. And I say this to my brother as well. Like I wished he spent more time just looking, because I mean, like, you know, people say, oh, I'm discovering, I'm looking, when, you know, like they're at their house. Like what really are you discovering? Right. You know, like you've seen this. And like even me, like I haven't like you know, you get superiority complexes sometimes. There's always ups and downs. Like, oh, I'm the best. Oh, I'm terrible. And like you think you figure it all out, and then when I went to Montreal for the first time with all of our friends, blown away. I was like, oh my god, like
there's a whole world out there.
Yeah, literally. Like Montreal was huge. I thought Ottawa was a city. Like this is a small town compared to Montreal. And I also went to Toronto. I actually prefer Montreal over Toronto. Way more aesthetically pleasing. But like, yeah, like I think that was great though, because in moments of great discovery, if you really identified what you want to do and those discoveries empower your vision, then I think you found something that you really like. Because when I went to Montreal, I was like, this is exactly why I want to keep building this. That's exactly why I want to increase the lifespan, because of all these experiences we all could be having had we known we had a little bit more time. Because you say like, oh, you're young, party, whatever. Like every time I'm outside, which people say is such a bad thing. Like I can't it's hard for me to enjoy myself outside because I'm like, I could be working. I could be working towards the dream. If maybe, just maybe, this second I spent not working changed and made or break the rest of humanity or my generation. Like not to be egotistical, but there's like a little thought in the back of my head, like, yo, like if you don't do this, like everyone you know and love is gonna die. Your kids will live forever, but like you're dead, and everyone you know is also dead. And that's lame, because your kids are gonna be flying spaceships and not you. And that's what I worry about.
To your previous point about Montreal and Toronto, I'd just like to say, since you assume that most of your audience are younger people with big desires and wants and needs, you have to travel. Like you cannot stay in one place the entire time. You're gonna be who you are no matter where you go. And I learned that, especially moving to Montreal for a little bit. I'm like, I'm gonna be a complete different person with different habits, different schedule, different friend group. I'm like, I can totally reinvent myself because it's a new city. I was the exact same person with the exact same habits in a new city. So I think, don't be afraid to put yourself in situations that are out of your comfort zone, especially when it comes to relocating. What's the worst that can happen? You go for a couple months, spend some money on rent, come back. You'll always have a family to come back to. Ottawa is a small pond, but it's safe, it's friendly. We can work, we can see our friends, whatever. But yeah, do not be afraid to look into other places, because there's so much outside of Ontario and Montreal. You know,
we're getting practical now.
What do you mean?
We're getting a little practical now.
We are getting practical.
But that's
no,
good.
but
Specifics.
I think entrepreneurship, it's a mix. It's you
Right.
have to envision yourself as this successful, creative, happy person.
But then you're constantly comparing that vision
Absolutely.
to like
there's a lot of practical
experiences.
things along the way. Like
Right.
you have to have a balance of both. You can't live in this alternate reality where you're just having all this money and magnetism. That is all very true. Abstract thoughts, they are there for a reason. But at the end of the day, you need to get on your hands and knees, work, you know, make your connections, talk to people, try new things. How, you know, you could say, I assume what Toronto will be like, but how do you know unless you move there for university? So I think just don't be scared to do things.
And that's what I wonder about, is how do I do more? What are the things that I need to do? What are the actions that basically bring the abstract into clarity and into the ground? And obviously traveling is the biggest one that we know, because it's fairly easily accessible to us. But Jean, one of the things I've always admired about you is your like literary capability. Obviously you're a writer. So can you talk to me in this context a little bit about the process of writing? And it's like, how often when you're writing your pieces or even your book, when do you know that it's time to go out and look to others, or look to kind of like a practical place where you haven't been yet? And when is the time to go back in and look more inside, or like look in the dictionary?
Well, okay, so one practical thing I'll talk about writing specifically is something called flow writing. So what you do is you set the timer, and then you literally just write. Like, don't pick up the pen off the table, off the paper ever, okay? So even if you have like no thoughts and you're like, I'm just writing, I have nothing to say, oh shit, like just write. And what that does, it goes into your subconscious. So you have to be able to get to a place where you're not just, writing for yourself, but you're trying to access something that you don't even know exists within you. And there, I believe, comes with lots of, power from the other spiritual side, right? This kind of universal conscious and creativity and all that. So I think when any time you're doing anything creative, right, especially when you're creating content, and whether you're a dancer, a writer, a sculptor, it doesn't matter. If you only think that you're doing this out of your own resources, it's so limiting. So let me differentiate between, being in solitude physically. It doesn't necessarily mean that, you not being physically alone, you can't continue that solitude in public, like when you're with other people, right? So what I'm trying to say is that you are sort of so well connected within yourself that whether you are physically sitting at a desk in your house alone trying to write versus, I don't know, I go to Starbucks, I'm sitting in a cafe full of people, I have friends dropping in, whatever, having a quick coffee. All of those activities creates fodder for my writing, right? It's equally important to not feel like I'm in solitude, but I don't feel alone. I think it's the feeling of not being isolated, right? So I guess like specifically with writing, I actually have a belief that I am like the pen of something higher. There's a higher source wanting to create a message, even if the message is just for me. Like that's how much I'm going to value that book.
And that goes back to, again, you're valuing your relationship with yourself.
Yes.
In the same regard that you would a relationship with somebody else.
Yeah, because it's like I'm important too. My growth is so important that there's a higher being. I don't care if you call it God, universe, source, love, right? There's something higher that loves me enough and values me enough that I'm worth it, for this beautiful message of life and truth and beauty to be brought to me alone. So that's why, that discipline of writing, again, I approach it with excitement. Yay, I get to discover something. There's something that's going to come out, It's not like, oh my God, I have to do this writing thing because it's like, so, I'm supposed to be writing if I want to be a writer. And like, it's this attitude just does it. Who would want to, who would want to contribute to that? Yeah. Whether it's a higher source or you
Good
as
point.
a human being.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not life. So I think, again, it goes back to, where are you in your attitude, in your outlook, in your, your desires, your needs. Where are you in that? So I'm going to bring up a very long ago, because it keeps running through my head as each of you are talking.
Please do.
That old adage of practice makes perfect. I turned it over on its head. So I became a certified life coach through Jay Shetty School. And something that he always said was, practice makes progress. So it's like, yes, that's right. So if I'm looking for the end goal of perfection, right? I'm like afraid. I don't want to go to the end goal because then I'm done. Like my desire is done, my journey is done, my process is done, maybe my life is done. So I'm not looking for perfection. I'm not looking for the 100th door, right? I'd like to get there because I like to experience what what a positive is versus a negative. But after I experience that positive 100th door, I want to go back to 101. Like what else is there? What higher levels of negative is there for me to discover? So I can go to 200 and go to like, another positive door, but then that's like amped up positive, right? It's going to be consistently progress. So, let's make sure that we are on that path. Whether as entrepreneurs or as human beings, in our relationships, like, man, if I'm with somebody who is like, oh my God, you're perfect, what we have is so good, and then it never grows from there. Like, who's going to stay in a relationship like that, right? It's like, okay, so we have to go through all of this conflict. We have to go through like maybe a separation, to come back together. It's going to be so much better. They always say like makeup sex is amazing. Like this is the idea of this, right? Like you don't know the pleasure and the heights of something until that you're not there. So yeah, let's not seek perfection, and let's not seek this one pinnacle of success, right? We don't want that. That's not life. We're not going to live forever and do this. How boring to be a vampire and do this cycle over and over. This is why vampires want to die, right? I mean, I don't know vampires, but this is what their stories are telling. That's why they don't want to live forever. It's like, it's fucking boring. Like, why would I want to keep doing it over and over again, this cycle, right?
This is a debate I get into all the time. Of course, naturally I would get into, and we could definitely talk about that later. But what I was gonna say, well, I guess there's like three things, which is that conversation that you just brought up. Two, in terms of relationships, that's really interesting. But what I also wanted to, oh man, my concussion is like really waving on me right now. What I was gonna say though, I'm just trying to recount everything you just said, like
perfection, progress.
Yeah. No, it was in terms of
Vampires, makeup sex.
That's where John's mind was.
No.
It stopped there.
Oh man, you don't know the half of it.
Let's talk about that too.
No, like
Yeah, let's get into relationships after this.
Yeah, I do. That's actually what I wanted to touch on. Secondly, but primarily, I was gonna say that like, in terms of getting like. In terms of making progress within yourself, I have had an interesting dilemma in trying to make that balance, and I've identified that in a lot of people. And as you reiterate, talking about more or less, and actually across this whole podcast, prioritizing yourself and this idea of ego in terms of progression. And you said, interestingly, not to focus on all those doors. For you personally, you look to try to expand your perspectives, and you still want to have that I guess that spontaneity within your life. And I've
great word
internally, I appreciate that as a writer, hearing it from a writer. Internally, like I am also like my entire life I've loved and appreciated spontaneity. I've loved and appreciated the ability to have random serendipitous things happen to me.
Yes.
But more and more, I've had this idea that perhaps if I optimize my life for this, I won't get where I need to go. And it's been hard for me, for one, to accept that, or also even think that it's right. Trying to get a balance in that sense has been so difficult for me. Yeah. And my conjecture is that like it's like a flow of the river again, where you have these spontaneous and serendipitous things happen to you, but it's still going along the path.
Yes.
But what I'm worried for is that those diverging branches of the river will have to be closed off.
Right.
So do you think it's necessary that I close these things off?
John, this is turning into a coaching session with you and my mom.
I mean, that's
okay.
Yeah, I mean, that was the point. Yeah, like hopefully other people have similar questions. But like,
you found our real intentions.
Yeah. But like, like how do we, like, should we even decide? Should we even make those sacrifices essentially to cut off those opportunities, or is it even wise to consider that?
So I think what you're asking about is actually distractions and focus, right? Like, we all love when things happen and you feel like it's all being masterfully orchestrated by some outside force. It's like, oh my God, we met each other. Like, wow, this opportunity came up. Wow. Like, so those are beautiful and necessary things to keep us, surprised and youthful. I think what you're getting to is, asking about how to focus. So this is where an age thing does matter. Like, I'm 50. I've had multiple jobs. I've tried multiple industries, I've tried a whole bunch of stuff, traveled, various relationships, on and on and on. I think I have enough in my bag to pick out what I like the best, right? Your bags are still not full, not even half full. And I know as human beings, it's like sometimes we don't know what we want until we actually figure out what we don't want. And you're definitely not in the stage where you have enough things to choose from, because you gotta. That's why when I said to you, John, like earlier, just relax and party. Like, and I said to you, I don't mean party as in drinking, right? Like that stuff. Like save your livers, guys. Yeah, like party as in just let loose. Sit back a little, let things come to you.
Maybe it's not even party, it's play.
Play,
as in like the things we did as kids just for absolutely no reason but just enjoyment.
Yes, because through that comes your flow, right? Flow, there's a whole thing, like the YouTube video, Science of Flow, look it up. Like, you don't know how you're going to be a part of this flowing river of energy and of creativity and of universal goodness and all of this stuff, until you just you have to go along with everything, right? You have to be open to everything. So I don't think this is a time in your life to be cutting things out. Prioritizing, that only comes in tasks, really, just in tasks. Like, what is it that needs to get done? There's like sort of a quadrant, right, of like sort of immediate and necessary or emergent, and like, so if something is in that category where you have to get this done today, for the next step to happen, yes, do those things. Obviously, we're adults. Like, we know that you need to do those kind of things. But in terms of, again, your attitude, your openness, trying new things, risk taking is your number one. Andrew, you asked about this. How do you progress? It's risk taking. That's it. How does risk-taking happen? You have to like yourself enough to know that, you can recover and forgive yourself when you not make a mistake, but when you choose the wrong thing, right? And what is the wrong thing anyways? Like, how do you know until you know, right? So I know it makes sense cerebrally, but emotionally, and it's hard, right? It's really hard for us to like get out of our comfort zone, take the risk, take the fall, forgive yourself, like, like slap off all the dirt and the bruises and then get up again, right? That's your success as an entrepreneur, as a person, right?
No, absolutely. Like that's something actually I've been so grateful to have like experienced in the past only year, literally, and maybe even the past 2 months, 3 months, which is like I can trust myself finally. Like my whole life, like I think it was like actually like such a crazy experience internally. I was like I did one thing and I was like, that was like the subconscious was like, that was a good job. And I'd never heard that in my life. I was like, you did good right there. That was a good decision. And when I started hearing that, like, over time you start hearing that more and more. And now like I can see how much I just restricted myself because I just didn't trust myself to make the right decision. And of course, I'm so grateful that I continue to question everything that I'm doing. I'm not like blindly confident. But that's why I think I can trust myself, because I will question 1,000 times before I'm like, okay, yeah, fine. But I also know that, and we were actually talking about this in the car, like, if I mess up, like, it's okay, like, whatever, like, I'm just going to keep going. That's where the conviction comes out of it.
Is what holds us down the most as humans, like not being able to let go of regret or of decisions we made. And that's very true with what you said, is having to like yourself enough. I never have heard it phrased that way, because that's something you hear is like, don't be regret, just move on, just let it go. But it's like, where is the source of that? Why can people do that? Why can people not? And I think that's right. It comes down to, if you did the best job at the time and made the decision with the best of your ability, the most knowledge you had, who knows what the future holds, but you did it the best at the moment.
That's actually super important. Like that's where all the trust comes from. Like if you can trust yourself to just perform 100% every time, then yeah, like why would you regret? There's literally nothing you could have done.
And you also have to trust yourself to get up again, right? That's what it is. I mean, we all have depressive modes. We stay in bed for days and watch like reruns of Grey's Anatomy and whatever else we choose. You know, are you okay to get out of bed day 3 and say, okay, like you wasted, 72 hours, but that's okay. Not because, I needed it or like don't make excuses. It's like, okay, you did it, period. What's next? Let's go. Like, let's keep going. Like, so I think that, I take a lot of stories from people who are very public. And someone I love is Sarah Blakely. She is the creator of Spanx, which every woman should get. This is a promo right now.
Spanx.
Spanx, they're like undergarment wear that give you shape.
She's a very successful businesswoman, though.
I could imagine.
Isn't she the first woman billionaire in America?
Yes, was first.
Wow.
Yeah, and her story is this. So every night at the dinner table, she and her sister would have to answer her father's question. At the dinner table, they sit down. The father said, "Okay, tell me 3 ways or whatever. Tell me the ways that you failed today." And she had to recount all the things. And she said that was the best training ever because it was like, A, you faced it, right? You named it. Then you said, okay, once you speak it, it's done. Don't dwell on it for 2 more years after that. Her father loved that they failed. Why? Because they tried. They risk took, right? That's all he was asking from them. He didn't ask about their successes. I just when I heard that, I was like, have I raised my kids this way? Because it's like, I want them, like, it's like, I always say to them, I gave you life so that you can fly, right? Remember, I'm always wanting them to just spread their wings and go, do something. And of course, as a parent, I'm always like, that might hurt. Oh, you might crash into, oh gosh, like, that's not quite the way I understand it. Like, what are you doing? Like, of course, as a human being, I think this way. But I think, and this is a painful history of our family, is that, so I separated from their father 10 years ago. And no matter what went down, all the aftermath that I know that you guys are going to have to deal with, I think the one thing I maintained always was to say, if I could do it again, exactly the way it was done, I would. And I think, number one, of course, they know that, because otherwise I wouldn't have them. But number 2, it's like, I forgave myself, right? I could be angry, like, how could I have not seen this coming? I had planned this, life forever with this person. So I failed, essentially. I failed.
And the biggest guilt could probably be attributed to your kids having 2 separate households, 2 separate situations. Yes. Like, I think most parents can't get over that when they get divorced.
Of course. It was not about me. Like, yes, of course I lost my love or, whatever. Like, no, it's what you guys had to deal with afterwards. But, that's such a powerful statement to say over and over to this day, 10 years later. And I think my kids have found some healing with that. Because A, it shows them I had to take the risk. I had to put everything I had in one basket, right? All my eggs in one basket. I chose to spend time with, like, my life with this man. I chose to have, babies and a family with him. And then it's like, it didn't work out, right? It failed miserably. And now I have 6 other lives that are affecting, not just me and my ex, right? So that level of, and I don't even want to say forgiveness, but that's the language I used. That level of forgiving myself from not making the right choice, by not maybe doing something I could have, maybe not giving more, whatever. Because now that's the only reason why I can go on today. That's the only reason why I can be the woman I am today. Happy, and I still believe passionately in love, like all of these things. But it had to come with that decision to say, done. That chapter, done. Would I do it all over again? Absolutely. No regrets. I forgive myself. Let's move on.
Yeah, that's super powerful. The decision. Like, not a lot of people make that decision. And I see actually all the time, and not just in terms of that, like, people just don't decide to let go. and like you can even say sometimes people find comfort and repeatedly giving themselves this unnecessary suffering. But yeah, I think that's super powerful.
And let's help those people through all your experience, not in just your marriage, but really in life and all the progress that you have gone through your life. Can you, or look like other definitions maybe you heard, like cerebrally define the virtue in progress? Is this at all possible?
So let's say,
Because we feel it, of course.
Yes.
But what
Let's
if I had to
say,
tell somebody?
Let's use the word expansion. Let's use the word leveling up, right?
Expansion is a good word.
Yeah, because I don't know what progress means, because whose scale are we going on? Like, is it because I'm going to go from, a C plus to an A? Like, I don't know what evaluatory system I'm using for progress, right? But yes, expansion. And I like leveling up because I always think of like the mountain view. And,
Right.
Or you can think of like when you play Mario, you go each level after defeating the
Yeah.
conqueror. I like that. Like then.
What level do you think you are? Like 500?
Oh my God.
Out of how many though? That's the question.
I don't even play Mario Brothers. Come on, guys. Give me a break.
What world are you on?
So is there some kind of a system or some kind of a procedure, right? You're asking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to all the principles we've been talking about, right? Number one, consistency. Do I only check in with the amount of work I've been doing once a year? Like, do I go on like one weekend yoga and writing retreat so that I can see whether I've changed or expanded, 364 days later? Like, that's not possible. Even if you work on your business like that, you'll never expand your business, right? So let's use that as a human term. Do I check in with myself every minute of the day and make sure that I'm like growing? Well, no. I mean, that's impossible as well. But have some kind of a regular system. I think that's why writing is so powerful. Journaling, something that gives you a reflective time, right? And you can do that. Like, I don't know. Some people run to do that. Right? Some people run just to give themselves quiet space away from any dings and, screams and whatever, like demanding
CEO's
people.
favorite sport.
Yeah, right?
Or activity to do outside of looking at
Yeah.
spreadsheets.
So something to give you a little bit of quiet and stillness. And I don't mean stillness as in your physical body. You can be still by doing an activity which gives you flow because you don't have to think about it, right? Some people drive. That's also a flow activity, right? Because you're kind of on automatic pilot. Okay, fine. And I should say long drive, not traffic driving. So something about this check-in and a regular, consistent check-in is very important. Number two is like, I should probably put it number one, but it's like you have to share. You have to talk. Like, don't just keep it within yourself, right? Even monks, and I keep going back to this monastic life, but I just find that there's so much beauty in it. Even monastic life, everybody there has a spiritual director. You are not to stay on your own. Even if you live in like some mountaintop by yourself, you have to come down once in a while and go see your spiritual director. Why? Because you have to share. There's something vibrationally using your throat and your voice to voice something that is like silent in your head, in your writing. It's like this verbalization of it, right? We've been given speech as a human being, species. So share it. I don't care how, podcast, best friend, parent, doesn't matter. Just share it regularly. Like, don't check in with me, Again, I don't know why I keep saying 1 year later. Like, I guess because people do this like, New Year's resolution. And then they like try for, whatever, a month, and then they fail, and then they never do it until the next year. Like, that doesn't work, right?
Working in the restaurant industry, we always see that around March, people start to come back because their resolution is to not spend money going out. March, it's done, it's over. They come back and never think about it again until January of the next year.
It has to be habitual. Like, that's the point. Like,
that's the point. Yes, exactly.
If you don't, like, I started journaling like around like July of last year, immediately after school, and not only has it been obviously super powerful because, like, of course, you can't remember every single thing you've done in a year. In fact, I when I started, like, I could remember the second thing I wrote, like, after a week. Like I don't even remember what I wrote yesterday, but it's so great.
That might be the concussion.
Yeah, maybe.
But
it's
maybe
like,
it wasn't that important.
yeah. No, actually, like I could pull it up on my Notion. Like I have, but it's just so powerful to like look back every single month. I do that every single month. I read. Well, sometimes every week I read what I wrote. If I really wrote something dope, like I'm like, okay, let me remind myself what I just learned. But like every month, I just review like every single day of what I did. And like, I've only been doing this for years. So at the end of this year, I hope to do a year review after all my month reviews and my semi-week reviews. But like looking back on all the things you've written can really tell you exactly how you've grown. And it's so powerful for me. Like, I guess how I write, I guess I'm just pretty visual. I can literally feel and see what I was thinking and how I was thinking emotionally and subconsciously at that moment. Like I can put myself right back when I start reading it again, and like I could see the progression where like the beginning, like my writing was a little like I guess overbearing and not entirely specific, but like as I kept going, like I became a lot more sophisticated, a lot more concise, and a lot more abstract as well. And like it just made the lessons resonate a lot more with me, and it was just like it's just incredible to be able to do things like that. So like, yeah, of course, like you have to touch base with yourself all the time. That's that consistent progression that you see. Otherwise, like how do you know what milestones you've hit? Because it takes a long time to even hit like real superficial milestones, like getting a raise, getting a promotion, getting a new job. But like if you can see that you've grown every single day, it is that much more empowering to whatever you're trying to accomplish. So that's what I just wanted to add. But I want to go on the other two things, and I want to, after relationships, I do want to have a debate a little bit about longevity, because I know are you still a Christian? Are you still?
I have my own belief system, but I don't identify with a specific religious,
Actually,
journey.
like me as well. Like I went through a bout where I went to like a Pentecostal church for like maybe about like a half a year, and but yeah, like I also agree. Like I don't really identify with the ideas of the church. It became more like abstract, of course. But in terms of relationships, now I don't know how deep you want to go. I also try to like be not as specific, especially since like happened like within the past month, so I'm not gonna be so specific.
Spill the beans, John. Let's go.
Yeah, like I still love her. Like she's not in that. Well, yeah, okay. Anyways, it just happened. I just got out of a long-term relationship, a 2-year relationship, and this is something that's been like a common theme throughout my life in the past 2 months, like nonstop thinking about it. And what I wanted to ask you was coping with, or rather even making the decision to accept it. Because for me, I identified that, and even before it ended, like I could have foreseen it, and I did. I was so worried that it was something I did wrong. I kept thinking there was just something, I made a mistake, and I don't want to lose this person. I want to do everything I can to keep them in my life. And not even just as like romantical, like I was just terrified that I did something so terribly wrong. And I think that even like accelerated it, or rather it made unnecessary suffering for the both of us, and especially myself, like, man. But like I just kept thinking like, okay, there's something else that I could do. I'm not good enough. I felt so inadequate, and that destroyed my confidence. That's probably why I also got super bitter in the second semester, because I was feeling all of these lack of self-worth, essentially. And towards the end, like, we started having genuine conversations about it. And like she basically said, like, John, like, it like I'm not trying to be corny. It's not you, it's me. Like, I just want to be like alone right now. Like, I don't want a responsibility of a relationship, and I love you, and I also don't want you out of my life. Like get that through your head. Like, really understand that. Like, you are perfect for me, and I am so sorry that I feel this way. But like, I just need to move on right now, and maybe later we can rekindle it, and I'd love to. Like, and I'm not gonna go even more into detail, but like, it was so hard for me to accept that. You want me to? Like, I could, bro.
It's a prediction, not a request.
Oh, prediction. Oh, you're saying I will go back.
I'm saying
He's saying you should keep it more level for the podcast as opposed to your coaching session.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, like, yeah, I guess we could go more detail.
It was a joke, not a.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, literally, like I would say this resolved
Bro,
like 2
you're so
days
nervous
ago.
right now. It's
I am so nervous because
Let's keep it on the topic of education for the
Yeah.
viewers, not for John's personal therapy session.
I'm not trying to make it personal therapy. Like, this literally ended like 2 days ago. Like, or sorry, not ended. Like, resolved. You know, we broke up in June, but like, ongoing process. But like, how did you even like reconcile with the idea that it may not have been all you, or do you still believe that? Did you like, how do you accept that it may not have been you, or rather, if it was you, like, how do you identify that and move on and not feel so much shame and regret?
Because it always feels like there's something you could have done.
Yeah, but you know, I think again, let's go back to the whole karma idea, right? We're only responsible for our part. You're not responsible for what the other person, how the other person reacts and how they, you know, receive and accept what you've done. And I know that's a hard thing to accept because, you know, we think that we are so, this kind of goes opposite to what I'm saying. I'm like, we are so powerful, but we're not that powerful that we can affect somebody else's like entire being, you know?
May the force be with you.
So, you know, I think some of it, it's humility, right? To say, you know, I did the best that I could have, that I did with what I knew at the time of. I always say that sentence. My kids know it. I did the best with what I knew, with what I had at the time of. That's it. What you know today is not what you knew 2 months ago, 2 years ago, right? So then that's kind of like, you know, if you don't expect, you know, a 3-month-old to walk, you don't expect I don't know, like a year-old to say their alphabet. Like, why do you expect yourself, John version, 2 years ago, to know who you are, like what you know today, to have done that, you know, for your relationship? And I know it makes sense again cerebrally. I think it's more again, it's our emotion. It's like, because it's like, I want to be all of this. I want to be, I want to be all of whatever, like the best version of myself at all times. And this is what expansion is, right? Like, it's we're limited to chronological time, right? On this side of the world, the reality. So you can't go against time. You can't go against experience, right? So why even question what could I have done? What more could I have done, right? Because you didn't know what to do. Like, you didn't have the resources to be able to do that. And then secondly, her decision and her journey is her own, right? Whatever you inputted, you know, made her suffer through, that was all necessary at the time of. But then it's like now she's making decisions for herself that may have been influenced by what you did or didn't do, but it surely is not the reason, right? Just like, you know, we have to all find our own happiness before we expect someone else to make us happy. She's making decisions for herself, and that's not because of you, you know, in spite of you. It's from you. Yes, for sure. Like, thank you, John. You know, I'm sure she's like, thank you, John, for how you've helped me to get to my point now.
And I would argue that relationships where you're making decisions for the other person are probably not healthy relationships to begin with. Because as opposed to allowing them to inspire you, influence you, whatever, it's for them and you're left out of the picture to begin with, then that's either an unhealthy amount of dependency or you're not prioritizing your needs as much as you should. And like we've been talking about this entire podcast, you're responsible for yourself to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I mean, like, I think, you know, I think in all intents and purposes, like, Cal and I were nothing like that. Like, we were just doing our own thing, and we were just really happy to tell each other about the story that we were going through, you know, sharing the journey. And this is something Andrew and I talked about in the car one day after, and I was just like, bro, like, how do I, like, I can't accept this. Like, she's my wife. Like, what the heck? I gotta make sure she's still there. But, like, it was that idea of, like, that, the story, you know, and that's where that conversation made me realize, like, why it hurt so much. It was essentially, like, the unraveling of whatever idea of my life in the future looked like, and coming to terms with that, as you said as well, like, plan this future with someone so much. It like, and I guess, like, it sounds super naive, you know, like I'm a young Padawan. How can I how can I, like, how am I supposed
I know
to?
what that is.
Yeah,
I don't know
figured-
Mario Bros. I know what that is.
Yeah, I figured you do. But like, you know how like man, like I know it sounds naive to even think about stuff like that.
You're like
at such a
Toad.
young age. Pardon?
You're like Toad.
I'm like
That's the Mario quote.
yeah, like yeah, you know, how could I think that I'm gonna be with Princess Peach, you know, if I'm just like a measly toad, I guess. but like
You level up, John.
yeah, exactly.
That's how you get her. Is that you level up yourself?
Do you believe there's power in expansion?
Of course.
Do you believe that
Of course.
moving forward would be a matter of expansion
It's
or
just
a
like-
matter of progress? Because that's, I think that's the question.
Do you
Yeah.
feel
For
right
us
now you're
typically
making
is that
regrets?
it-
I thought
It's-
what I regretted was that I was scared I messed up. Like I scared like it was me who started this.
But didn't we say earlier that regrets are what hold you back from growing?
Well, yeah, and that's why for the past like 5 months I've been miserable. You know, like
Yeah.
And if it weren't for like all the things else wise I was doing this summer, like I wouldn't have gone at all because like everything else was pushing me to my limits. But when I'd come home, I'd go to bed and I'd be like, "Fuck, what did I do wrong? Damn, like I could be telling somebody about my day right now, but I'm not, and I gotta accept that." And of course, you know, like there's obviously credence to like learning about myself, and you know, like it's always an ongoing process coming to terms with mindfulness and whatever. But like, in respect to what you were asking, like, I just couldn't accept that she wouldn't be a part of the journey. Like that's what I was just like fuck, like what do I do? Like what can I latch on to? Who can I talk to? What can I say to her to convince her otherwise, or maybe like make up for whatever I did? But she's just like, yo, like there's nothing you could do because you did nothing wrong anyway. Like we were fine, we were perfect, we had great memories, and and she was like, it even hurt me every single day to think that this is a possibility. But you know, like John, like it's something that I need, and that's okay. Maybe we can touch base later. But it was like, it was genuine, you know, like that's what I really appreciated with us. Like it was very mature for what I've seen so far. There was no like, it wasn't like, you know, I'm scared that when I explain it to people, they're like they think it's not you, it's me type thing as like a cliche. But it wasn't. And I can genuinely say that. And like, you know, I still don't want her out of my life. And maybe this is subject to debate. That like I'm still friends with her. In fact, she texted me right before this podcast. She's like, I got a new car, and I'm like, dope. Like, show me the picture. I'm at a podcast right now.
Sharing good news, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's still in each other's life.
Yeah, and I don't want to lose her. Like,
Yeah.
I don't. And you know, I mean, like, it's just that like I don't even know how to I don't know how to move forward. Like, what do I just focus on myself? How am I supposed to be receptive? Will I be receptive to something new? Or should I even be receptive to something new?
Right.
You know, like that's all the things I'm thinking about. I'm sure you've thought the same. So could you expand more on that?
No, I think it's thank you for sharing your
I appreciate you guys for
your
listening.
utmost. Yeah, no, really, it's it takes a lot of courage to do that. You know, I think I'm just struck on the idea about some brotherly love here happening. Yes. Physical.
Andrew's
just
just happy he got his buddy back.
Yeah. You know, I think that let's talk about the aftermath, right? Because I just talked about my divorce, and you talked about this loss of this relationship. Like, there is legit time and space to mourn, right? Something that that no longer exists, that you thought was gonna last, right? Sometimes you can even mourn a relationship still intact, but somehow the stage or some kind of innocence was lost or something along those lines, right? So, and I think, you know, and I guess the Buddhists have it right, like, just don't be attached to anything, and then you don't have to, you know, stay in your sadness. And I'm sure that's not their message. I'm sorry for all the people who believe in that philosophy. I was not, you know, making it trite.
A lot of them watch this, so they'll be texting me after this. But
But what I'm saying is that, you know, when I say let go, it's like, so again, you talked about, Karyss, you said, you know, the more you chase a bird, it flies away, right? So it's not that you are in a stage of needing or discerning to chase or not. This is why I'm saying take a step back, take a moment to mourn that this thing that you had with somebody no longer exists in the full form that you had it, right? In the form that you had it. Are you open then to this expansion and leveling up, which then gets you A, out of your comfort zone, B, taking risks? Like, we just recycling this whole conversation again, right? Even in your relationship now. Because now you have to create something different for your reality in order for someone, her, or someone like her, or some other being to come in to then expand you again to the next stage, right? So this is the cycle. So anyways, I think what I'm trying to say is I give a shout out to mourning. Like, make sure we take that time. If you need to lay in bed and be depressed for a little, that's okay. That's your way of mourning. Some people might mourn by, I don't know, jumping out of a relationship. Some people, we all have different ways of mourning. Not all healthy. But at least recognize it for what it is. It's the end of something, right? We don't need to we don't need to jump into something else or try to get something back. I think then you're going backwards. So let's make sure that we, anyways, that's my only thing with that. Let's make sure we mourn. And then I ask, like, what is it that you're mourning, right? Especially with this relationship, which is so beautiful and healthy and you know, salvific. I think of my son who went to Europe for a summer and saw these incredibly beautiful sights, buildings and paintings.
I thought you were going to say women.
That too. Europe definitely has beautiful women.
Yes.
Tall, gorgeous.
So that's what he told you.
This was that's a good one. Yeah, that's right. This was, I think for him, it was like kind of next level beauty, right? Like it's a type of beauty that wanted to like make him cry because it was so like there was no words. But what does he say was his greatest source of pain? There was no one to share it with.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So now we're talking about this like other witness to beauties in your life, like things that you're learning, ways that you're growing, successes that you want to celebrate. It's like that's the greater loss, right? It's like, oh man, I don't have somebody who's like intimately knows those details, and I could be like, hey, like this happened to me, yay! Like, so definitely that's worth the mourn. Like, yes, you should be sad. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. It should be difficult to let go. And, you know, I'm not going to say to you, just move on, John, like, you know, just whatever. That's what people say when people lose people in their life and they're at a better place.
That's what I said.
Yeah, well, you know, and it's good. Maybe
I say
he
that
needs
too.
to hear it. Yeah. You know,
That's
like,
what we said.
if you
These two in the middle.
if somebody dies in your life and you say to them, you know, they're in a better place, like, fuck you. Like, why are you telling me that? Like, that has nothing to do with this sacred process of mourning. Like, they're no longer here.
Those people just haven't seen the other side. They haven't been shell shocked.
I think they're
right, guys?
they're too like they're not
Let her
willing
keep talking.
to go
Let her
in.
keep talking.
They're not willing to go in, you know? Like,
Yeah.
as much as we talk about solitude and stillness and, you know, deeper reflective, you know, awareness, all of that, definitely part of that is also mourning, right? Also being sad and realizing that you don't get the fulfillment of something that is beautiful and that's necessary in your life. So anyways, I don't have an answer to that. I'm just recognizing that your sadness, it's legit.
Yeah.
Like, take it in. You know, it's don't minimize it and don't like try to fluff it off. This is not going to help us expand.
No, that's actually so real. And you know, like, I do this thing where like I give advice and it's like it's so applicable to everything I do in my life, but I don't apply it. like and I knew deep down, and this is actually something I told her, even like I actually like you know, we had beautiful moments on like literally when we broke up, and that was actually like it was actually like a movie. Like it felt like such a great resolution to that chapter. Like we were just crying in the car listening to like the songs we played. We had just come from like Omega Park. We were just like, wow, like this is we had such a great thing. And like I was like, man, I'm just excited that I could be sad because it means something so valuable happened in my life. But like shortly after, I fell back into like petty ideas and like frankly really like superficial things where I was just like, oh, like that's where I fell down the rabbit hole of thinking maybe I could have done better, because then I truly realized what I had lost, and then I was like, oh fuck. But yeah, like I really didn't give myself any second to mourn. Like I was just like, okay, it's over. Like go. Like go. You have now so much more time to focus. Do it. And I tried, and frankly for like maybe a week, I was on point. I was feeling happy. I was like, yeah. And then like it was ironic. Like one of my friends came up to me and they were like, like John, like I just feel so bad for you. Like Cal was great. And then I was just like, huh. And then the same day we went to McDonald's and we were just talking about like this rapper and his girlfriend, Madeline Argy, and he was like, yo, Madeline Argy, the one that looks like Cal? And like that was like another punch in the face, and I was just like and like I literally went down a spiral. I was like, oh,
He takes the definition of kick a dog when it's down literally.
yes. And I was just like, oh shit.
For the record, this is not me.
No, it wasn't.
No, because Andrew would have said to move on.
I was there cringing from the side the whole
Yeah,
time.
he definitely felt.
I'm like, bro.
Yeah, he looked at Freddie and then at me, bro. And he was like, oh. And I was just like,
I'm
yeah.
like, no, she doesn't look like her.
Yeah,
They look totally
what are you
different.
talking about? And I was just like, I was just like there looking at him like, just shed a tear. Like, no, but like, yeah, like that's what set me down a spiral. Cause like, I didn't give myself time, and then I was just like, yeah, I was just reminded of everything.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, and I think this is just more a reflection of like what I like believe and what I think I value now, and like that even goes to saying like how I even treated my concussion. Like I was just on the ball. Like I got hit in the head, and I'm getting the repercussions of it now because I haven't taken a break.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, I gotta work. Oh my god, so hard. And then literally last night, like I couldn't even see. Like I was just like, and I had a concussion literally like not even a year ago.
Okay, you need to slow down. Stop driving really fast. Stop doing crazy sports. Just calm down. Be still physically, John.
When school started, we have a week left, literally. Like I'm like, oh, this sucks. I'm so stupid.
Okay, we could segue from all of that, everything we've been talking about, relationships, entrepreneurship, breakups, to maybe pose a question. How much more difficult is it for an entrepreneur to navigate and keep relationships versus the 99%?
Good question, Karyss.
Thank you.
Good
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
But there's only one person who can attempt to answer it.
Yourself.
Third co-host.
Oh.
Yourself. No, I mean, oh gosh. I think if I look at entrepreneurs like artists, because that's essentially what you are.
Yes.
You're creating a business, or you're creating a lifestyle for yourself, right?
It is art.
It is totally an art, yeah. But I think people understand better if I use an artist, right? Because we all know the temperament of a true artist,
Yeah.
right? They need tons of time. I'll say alone, but they need tons of time. They need tons of space. And yet they want you right there. It's like when they need you and they need some external stimulation, force, muse, distraction, they want you to be there. So it's a very, very centralized operation to be an artist. It's the same thing with an entrepreneur. I think so. You have to be, because an entrepreneur has to be committed 100% to that relationship. And I'm not going to say first, but it's 100% commitment, which how do you balance 100% and another 100%, right? So I don't know. Again, I don't know. I was married to a student who had to 100% be present for his studies, because it takes a lot to, create a PhD thesis. So I think what can work is if your partner has something of their own that's not relationship focused, whether that's children, whether it's their own entrepreneurship, their own art, friends, really good friends. Because I think you cannot demand or expect somebody who is in the build for most of your life together, longevity wise as well, to be putting the relationship center.
So do you think two entrepreneurs make a good relationship, whether it's just friendship, dating, things like that?
You would definitely understand each other. That's the same question I think celebrities get, right? Same thing. Like, would it be easier to date a celebrity because they would understand your schedule and the demands that people have on you as a public figure? And I mean, I don't know. In the end, isn't it just about compatibility? Like, why do we have to put entrepreneurs, celebrities, artists in a separate category? I mean, we all just want love and we receive love, right? It's like, that's pretty simple.
Tying that in together with some other parts of this conversation, in your experience, or at least could you offer some pointers for us? There's this fear that I'm not achieving like a pure relationship because, and do you think I think a lot of times the sentiment that I hear from adults is that it doesn't actually exist. Like, the bullet wound never truly heals, and so and that's my fear, is that the bullet wound, it doesn't fully heal. So you have to take essentially all the power you can get from just the matter of moving forward. Do you think that's the case? And how do then I move into something new, whether it's a new business, new relationship? That's your analogy, and it makes total sense. How do I, but especially when it comes to people, like, you want to have integrity, and you want to have enough integrity that when you talk to somebody new, and you essentially give them the message that you're giving them all your attention, that it's true. But if you look deep inside, you often find that it's not the case.
Are you referring to bullet wound as in lost relationship or lost business?
Let's say lost relationship, because I think that it's harder to reconcile because they're complete opposites in terms of how clear it is whether you were in control or not in control. Like, if I lose a business, I suppose it could happen out of like an external factor, but at the same time, I can make that kind of separation clear. Like, it's much more a cerebral function, right? But when it comes to relationships, like, I always have this insecurity that I wasn't good enough.
I could argue that relationships can also end from external factors, like businesses definitely, and sometimes that's internal factors, the relationship with yourself, how much work you're putting into the business, it can make it fail. But we were talking about this earlier in the car too. Cars are just places of wisdom, you know. You have great conversation.
Yeah, we were really looking forward to driving in with you guys.
Yeah, but I think relationships too, I think, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes the outside source, quote unquote, is this higher power, universe, God, whatever. You're just not compatible, or you're not attracted to each other, or your lives are moving at different paces. You want to be here, they want to be there. Your schedule's this, your schedule's that. That can also either end a relationship before it starts or end it just in general. And the sense that it's you, would you say, and I guess we were talking about this with John too, like, how do I know it's not me? Would you say is that ever actually truly the case? It is you and something you did and you didn't do. And
it's also just that when there is this way to think about it, where when I say that it's not me, then it's kind of a weight off my shoulders. But at the same time, I think for me a lot of time, and John, I don't know if you relate to this, saying that it's not me, even if you wholeheartedly believe it, because it's obviously the case, it actually seems to take a lot of power away. And it is naive to think about it in a way where, well, my worldview crashed because of reality. But at the same time, it's this sense of, well, is that the peak of it? And now with every relationship going forward, it's just going to be kind of you're gonna be experiencing something in a more sort of corrupted sense.
I would say it's in terms of like your actual impact. Like, I actually think this is where I had issues because it's a model. Any understanding you have of reality is a model that your brain synthesizes
Right.
from your experiences. And for me, like I've developed this model in any sort of relationships or actually anything. Like essentially, it's like a probability distribution, and whatever you do and whatever external factors do, they're all different variables, and we've talked about this all the time. And like, of course, whatever you do plays into it. Absolutely. And that's where all the pain was for me, because it's like, okay, there was things I had control of, and I do identify that I could have been better, of course. And as you said, you know, it's a lot easier in hindsight. You can never reconnect the dots forward, or rather, it's much hard to. And like, what I would say is that like, I mean, and again, like, this is why I say, like, I say advice and I don't apply it to my own life, because of course you have to learn, and you always need to iterate on what things that you do that impact the variables, but there are just so many things outside of your control that are also cofactors in the function that you obviously can't take control of. In a much more stoic manner, you have to accept that. And you have to also trust yourself that you will maximize these variables as well. And that's how I look at my entire life, trying to maximize these probability distributions in the best way in my ability, and also identify opportunities in that sense, which I guess sounds pretty abstract. But in terms of machine learning, it makes so much more sense to me, like in AI, because that's the models, right? And what's the actual issue is fine-tuning your ability to weigh the variables, which is, again, ironically.
Yeah, it's funny because I just thought in my head, I'm like, yeah, that makes so much sense. Then I realized that only makes sense in
terms
in
of
the context of like
in terms
the
of machine
science,
learning, yeah, like in a scientific basis.
I guess it's probably much harder to
Exactly.
fine-tune the variables.
Yeah,
you can't just press compile and rerun the test.
Exactly.
So.
In practice, like, the weights is something that you only get through experience. Like, genuinely, you can only get it through experience, or obviously wisdom. But again, like, you have to see it, and like I won't make the mistakes that I did before, because, of course, like, I think it's, of course, true that I played a part in driving anything away, and I think that's true for anything. You definitely played a part in it, and you have to accept that. But you can't overestimate the value that you put into playing that. You know, you could, and that's what I did. Like, I thought, like, it was only me. My weights were heavily skewed in saying that, like, my model is saying, okay, like, this is where all the errors, red flags, error, sirens going off, like, wow, like, you messed up. But it's like, you kind of messed up, I guess. Or maybe you did mess up really bad, but it's so uncertain. There are still, like, a lot of factors, which is, like, the biggest one, which is probably what she says, because, of course, like, you know, we're also genuine. I ask, like, what did I actually do wrong? Like, please tell. And she's like, I can't really think of anything right now, like, frankly. And obviously, you know, she did say some things over time as we continued to talk, because I was so focused on it. You know, but, like, for the most part, it was probably something out of my control. And in terms of relationships, man, like, and this is just everything, you know, applies to everything. Like, you just gotta play the game so that, you know, you're maximizing all your factors if you can bear it, and also accept that the probabilities may or may not be in your favor, you know. So, but that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah. Okay. So you said that you can only really reconnect the dots backwards. You can't connect the dots forward, especially when it comes to people. So with that, let's connect the dots backwards, because we have actually lived long enough and known each other long enough to see if we have actually learned from our mistakes or not. So should we go career or relationships? Gene, you said you've been in a lot of industries. What are I think that when I first kind of stepped into your house, you were you owned a hair salon. Is this correct? Does my memory
They were nail salons.
Nail salon, okay.
Yeah.
There was one nail salon inside a hair salon.
That's true. Yeah. There were 3 in total.
Okay.
That's why I got ready for my grade 8 prom.
Okay. There was a grade 8 prom. I was not invited. Apparently. What's that?
Sorry, I meant homecoming.
I also.
All right. So are we trying to go
remember that.
back in time and talk about when we first met?
No, I do remember that, Andrew.
What's that?
You probably just didn't go to the homecoming.
The homecoming?
Yeah.
You're probably, like, too woke for that.
No, I was. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you went and took photos and breakdanced.
Oh really?
Dude, yeah, you're an AV guy, bro.
There was a homecoming in grade 8.
Yeah.
There absolutely
It was in, like, the upper gym.
Yep. It was before our graduation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bro, that's stupid. Why did you have a comb in grade 8?
Okay, anyways,
At
let's
least you had
let's
something.
recircle. Are you trying to bring the conversation to when you first met me and my mom and what she was in at the time?
Yeah. And I was actually going to ask you about maybe that particularly, but also what are some of the timeless silver linings between all your different careers and all your different pursuits professionally? Because we're doing a lot of different things.
Yeah, I mean, just to say one piece about what we just talked about, I think that, entrepreneurship is still work in the end, right?
Yeah.
Like, whether you work for yourself or whether you work for a corporation or an organization, it still requires your work ethic, right? So let's say even all of these industries I was in, and they were, I was actually in the school system, so I did work. I also worked for government, Crown Corporation. I did that. And I worked in the health and fitness industry for many, many years. I actually worked for a gym, a health center. And then I branched out on my own. And then, oh my goodness, I've done multiple, multi-level marketing groups. Anything to do with skincare. I even did RESPs. I worked in finance. I did workshops, presentations in the school board, promoting French education for, English, centered central homes. Oh my God, I can't even imagine what my resume looks like. But I'll say that the criticism I always got was, stay focused, Jean. How are you going to be a Jill of all trades and an expert of none? But the silver lining there comes from knowing myself, right? Again, I go back to myself. It's I developed so many skills. Oh, I even did construction. Just say something, and I'm like,
I like
oh
that just
yeah,
popped up.
I did that. Yeah, because I'm just how do I know myself? Serving, service oriented, everything, bartending, all that stuff. How do I know myself? Because through it all, really, it's I actually created my work ethic, right? It's what am I willing to sacrifice? What feels satisfactory for me in terms of energy output, input, what should I say, reward system, all of this stuff. It matters, right? And after a while, I just realized I don't want to wait for rewards from other people. I don't want somebody else to tell me what kind of a job I've done. So that's why I think I stuck with, let me work for myself. And the proof will be in the pudding with, whether people come or not, whether I get clients or not, right? Anyways, so I think truly the silver lining and the lesson that I will impart to anyone who's going on the entrepreneurial route is just figure out what it is that you prioritize in your time, in your values, because going backwards to the relationship piece, I did say 100% that you're giving into your entrepreneurship or your business, but you could also be a workaholic for, any corporation as well, right? So it's not the thing that you're giving to, whether it's your own business or someone else's. It's whether you are able to, be a full human being. I can work every waking hour, but why would I want to do that? Because there's only so much self-discovery that I could do on my own through work, through the vehicle of work. I equally need relationships. I equally need recreation. I equally need, right? This is what I mean about being holistic. Thank you for using that word, Andrew. Maybe I did a lot of stuff within just a work industry, but you haven't asked me about hobbies and interest there. You haven't asked me about the kind of relationships I've had, right, with various kinds of people. You haven't asked me about travels. So I think who I am in every sector of my life is very consistent. I don't want to say dabble because it sounds so unserious, non-serious, but I am very willing to expand myself in very new and untouched territories, and I've done that for every aspect of my life.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We focused on this, and you say you're consistent across all aspects of your life. This is something that I'm not even going to caveat it as I usually do with I don't want to speak for both of us because I know full well we care a lot about the integrity that comes from being from having like a consistent, even let's say like personality. Like when I change my personality at work, I'm like careful there. I'm like, how do I make sure I don't want to be fake here, but I need to be respectful. Yeah.
100%. I actually used to be very proud that I was like, oh, I could be a chameleon. Like if I'm with a group of, like rappers, like last night versus a group of, deputy senator, party. Like I can easily, I'm very fluid between those two groups. But it doesn't change me, of course. It's like just because I'm adaptable doesn't make me non-integrated, right? I think that's what you're looking for. It's like, it's my true fabric. And I think I keep using the word value because it's such an important word. Like, do I still live by and portray my values in whatever I'm doing, right? With whoever I'm with, whatever activities I'm engaged in. Yeah.
I do want to move on to what you just mentioned, like all these other things about our lives, hobbies, relationships, etc. But this is one thing that I've like, it's a question that I always have all the time, and it's something I've been asking so many people. And this is what I was actually trying to get earlier when I had like the pause, and I was like, what the fuck am I trying to say? It's that, oh my God, I'm losing it again. It's that idea that, there's so many experiences that even I, especially me, like that's something intrinsic to my core of that's existential to me. I want to have all these experiences. And in high school, I also took so much pride of being able to fit into all these different ideas of people that I could have, all these different roles that I could play, and I loved it. And, I'm not going to say anything like critique about that itself. It was more like, in terms of what we should achieve, what we should focus on, especially as entrepreneurs, like, is it necessary that we make sacrifices to allow this thing to become our identity? And this goes into a conversation that I wanted to have thirdly, which was talking about living forever, because like this is like delusional of me to even believe, of course, as in like what's delusional is that I assume that because I am so confident and I have so much conviction that I will achieve what I set out to achieve, that I will have the time to do these things later, which I don't actually play my life out. Because, like, again, like, I'm also a person, and I also, of course, value experiences, so I still try to maximize that.
Spontaneity, you said.
Yes, exactly. I love it. But I lean more towards killing that part of me because I feel like I have to do something. It's compelling me existentially because, I mean, like, in a literal sense, if I don't do this, I can't do it as long as I want, however long I choose. And, it's also something that I saw in a lot of different people, where I was asking advice on how I should play out my career, what sacrifices should they make, and frankly, I was always happy when they said you could have it all. But what was common was that I noticed that they would say that they were aimless, essentially, and they say it in a lot of different ways, like, oh, I did this, did that, this is whatever, but it's all the same thing, basically saying that like they were trying to figure it out. They wanted to give themselves freedom, and then now they're where they are. And, like, power to them. They have what they want now. They have the life they have. But to me, it was so unappealing. That idea that being aimless brings you to a place where you're not at the position that you could be. And for me, it sounded, and obviously, I could be actually completely misunderstanding, but what I saw was like, if I don't focus, if I don't sacrifice the desire to have these nuanced and novel experiences, I will be there. I will be stuck, and I will have not chased my dreams. I would have given up because I did essentially give up. I was too focused on having a fulfilling life, experience-wise, instead of devoting myself to this. And I essentially felt like I had to let go of not even like this ego, because the ego exists much more pridefully in this ambition, but that's like, it feels like that's all I am. And if I keep going, that will be all I am. And I'm just wondering, like, is it even wise to do that if I want to achieve something like that?
Let's I think what word we're looking for here in this, what I'm hearing you say, we're talking about discipline, right? We're talking about prioritizing and discipline of habits, right? I think that, when you talk about sacrificing something, or it's almost like a begrudging of the process.
It's like a question of like, is it worth it?
Yeah, but I mean, again, that question is almost a non-question, because how do you know? Because
Yeah.
you're not there. You haven't received the reward at the end, and like, how do you know if it's worth it? We've talked a lot about like monks and monastery, like monastic life. Let's go the opposite. Let's talk about farmers, right? Let's talk about people who get up, do the same routine every day, rain or shine. They don't think about their meaning, their purpose. How do I feel today? Cows have to be, milked, whatever. The grains have to be, whatever. I'm not a farmer. I don't know all the things I have to do.
Harvested, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Even before that. Anyways, so does a farmer's existence have any less joy, right? Any less awareness than a monk's? It's a valid question, right?
Arrogantly, maybe naively so, I believe no. I believe
Yeah.
there's richer experiences.
Right.
Like you could feel such complex emotions, and I have felt them, so that's why I yearn for that. But then it's like, what if I mess up? Like what if I forget? And you're right about the discipline. Like, it's just that like it's again that idea of like 1 second gone, one mistake gone. It's that idea of like, how much conviction can you really have? Or maybe this is more like a psychological thing on my part, basically asking like, is this risk really worth it? Should I take a risk that could mess up my entire life and I could have regrets of not having all the experiences? Or could I risk also having the most fulfilling legacy that I could ever have? I think that's the argument of having any dream.
All that energy that takes sometimes for you to analyze and discern these things, sometimes it actually takes away from just taking the risk, right? Like, that's what holds you back.
That's for sure.
Right? So I'm not telling you to be foolish and just like jump at everything. Of course not. But is there sort of a sense of like overthinking? Like it's called a analysis paralysis.
I
right?
love that.
Yeah. Like, sometimes, and I think that's why when I talk about making sure that you check in regularly, consistently with solitude and, yourself and liking yourself and all of that stuff, that's why that's necessary. Because once you know yourself, sometimes those kind of opportunities that come, and you don't have to sit there and wonder, is this worth it? You're thinking about all the ways that you could fail. That's a lot of energy, right? Output. But if you know yourself and even if I risk it and I fail, I know myself well enough that I will forgive myself and go on to the next thing. Isn't that better? Isn't that better to sort of have that assurance, and that your identity, you mentioned this identity, your identity is not tied to what you do, right? Whether it's a title or whether it's the thing that you're, wondering whether I should risk or not. Your identity is purely in who you are as a human being. You have, like I said, I have every right to be here, breathing this air, taking up space. That's my identity, right? My identity is not what I do with it, how I do it, how perfectly I do it. So I think that transition has to happen. And I think that's the process that you're on right now, the journey that you're on right now.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel that, like, and of course, like, I've been overly analytical and definitely not moving forward as a result of it. Like, this summer, I barely touched anything regarding what I actually wanted to do. Safe from motive. Like, I love this. I love doing this. But, like, I didn't touch any of my aspirations this summer. And, like, when I was looking about it at the start of the month, I was like, bro, like, what went wrong there? And, like, life happens, etc. But, like, yeah, it was really just that, like, I guess, yeah, it's more about fear. And I was more. I think I still needed to grow though. I definitely needed to not touch it because I probably wouldn't have made the right decision, or I wasn't ready to make the decision. You know, like I needed to be able to trust myself. Like, yeah, is this something I could commit my life to? And you know, it's still an ongoing process. But for the most part, like in terms of extremes, like I would rather have died on the path than to have said maybe this is not for me and go have a bunch of kids. I should just do all of it, you know.
Gene, you've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. Have you ever seen somebody make the shift between fearfulness
that's a good
and
question.
the lack of fear, which lets them pursue their path,
Or
whether they succeed or not in the end?
Or have you ever seen someone who has made the shift of in their dreams and decided, okay, now I want to back away? Like, have you seen either of those points?
I've definitely seen a lot of entrepreneurs who went all in, came out, took a regular 9-to-5 job, came back in half-time. You know, like, again, yes, there's countless stories, and I think we can all find them as well. But, you know, the thing with the fear part is that it's so private. You know, it's such a personal thing. Like, you don't need to discuss and show all of the processing and the fears, right? That's personal. That's again, inner relationship. Like, two people that have been married for a while, they have this kind of special dynamic, right? We kind of see it, like, look around, look across the room, like, you know, they've grown that process. It's private, and it's also something that I find that you don't need to analyze and advertise, right? That is a relationship piece. So, do I see it? Absolutely. Have I, you know, witnessed sort of their actions as a result of fear? Absolutely. Do I ask them about it and we talk about it? No, I don't think it's necessary. Why? Because then you're putting so much time and energy into a negative force. So if I sense that somebody is fearful or held back, or, you know, it's just, I come in, it's a reminder. This is a lonely path. This is a hard path. What can I do for you to help you move to the next level or whatever, right? We keep focusing on that. This is what coaching is actually too. It's not, and this is not coaching, by the way, because I would not be talking. I would not be sharing like personal things. But this is why coaching is different from therapy, right? Because therapy, we want to analyze all of those things to death, right? Like things from the past, negative feelings. Like coaching, it says, let's acknowledge them. Let's name them. Say, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Now, how are we going to move forward? What do we do to put our energy and focus to what needs to get, you know, us to the next step?
And if that all sounds desirable, go to G&K Fitness today to get your coaching package.
I love the shout out.
We'll see you there.
Yo, I hate to pull us out of the conversation, but did you gestured to Andrew? Are you saying like you wanted a bathroom break or something? Oh, you had to go. That's fine. Like we can definitely end it here. This is definitely a good note.
It's almost 9.
Yeah. 3 hour podcast.
Do you want to tell the story real quickly before you guys go?
What story?
The story of how we all met.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Shouldn't we have started with that?
No, it's like a light ending.
But they can edit it later too. Anyways, go ahead.
Okay, well, I mean, I can't tell the story myself. I'm gonna encourage my way through it. But yes, we've been talking about relationships, and sitting in front of you is my first crush here, Karyss.
Yeah.
Hello. And I'm sure that not only Gene knows it too well, but John knows it too well as well, because we were friends back then.
Oh yeah, this guy. Oh my gosh.
So
I remember the summer after he came back from Russia bald, and I was like, yeah, it took a toll on him.
That's crazy.
I did not know that.
That's crazy.
I remember the Google photos.
No, yeah. It was
So
just,
you must be
so
really
stressful.
healthy now with such grown-out hair and
It
a
was stressful.
long
My hair was
beard.
just falling
Yeah.
out. I'm like, that man, I'm kidding.
Yeah, he was pulling it out. It's like
Yeah,
that's what you
it
did to him. No, like we were we had like a huge friend group in like grade 7, grade 8. That's when we all like met each other.
yeah.
And then you know, like we all met Gene. Well, no, you met Gene before because you were breakdancing with Nathaniel, right?
Yes, we were all in the breaking scene. Nate was there. Yeah, we were all at the Flavor Factory. You met a lot of the people there.
That's right.
We trained with Benjamin as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Shout out to all these Ottawa people.
So yeah,
Yeah,
a lot
so
of
disconnected.
a lot of legit roots there, right? And then yeah, we would always come to your house to chill and to have kind of like get-togethers or like middle school parties, I guess you could call them.
Yeah.
Hosting the what is it called? The USSC parties.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a little context.
How-
We all lived in the same place,
Yeah,
and
Centerpoint.
no one's parents were as chill as my mom. She let everyone come over at any time, left us in the basement.
And we wrecked that house.
We destroyed it. She let us eat all the food, didn't put any limitations on curfew. So
Yeah, it was really welcoming, frankly. Like
Yeah.
I was like, man, like me coming into the house, I was like, oh my god, like I have to be like Gene. Like I was like, wow, like I thought you somehow you got all your work done in like 3 hours. And then you
oh,
said,
so he was coming for
Yeah.
my mom, not for me, really.
Oh.
no, I was
You
just,
were not his first crush.
I was just inspired. I was just like, damn, like I'm trying to be like Gene. you know? Like, I'm out here.
John and I came in. We're like, you got it, okay, let's go.
No. But like, yeah, like it was
They're
super
like, hey,
inspiring.
Gene, can I help you clean?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I'll watch the dishes. Oh my gosh, Andrew.
You guys are so cool.
You think so? I was gonna ask, like, what was your impressions of us, like, especially throughout the
I
years?
don't think she thought about you guys when you were 12 and 13.
No, but were you like, oh, this is a good impression on my daughter?
Yeah, like even
were
you're
you
like, who
are
the
these
heck?
kids?
Like, these guys are.
I,
thought we were
I have to
bums.
share a story about my talk with Andrew.
Oh my god.
That comes
Let's
that comes
hear
later
that.
in the history. We're talking about grade 7 right now.
No, but sure, please. Let's
That
hear it,
was
let's hear it.
grade 8.
that,
That
that
was in
I know
grade
that was
8.
grade 8, but I'm saying if we're talking about when we all first met, I first met them in grade 7.
I don't know the conversation though. What's
You
the
tell them the
conversation?
story about grade 7 and I'll jump
Okay,
to grade 8. That's
to give
my
a,
first
to
memory
give a bit of
Andrew.
context to listeners, me and Andrew didn't talk in grade 7. He was the brown noser because he was really close with the teacher and always took the photos, and that's all I knew about him.
Yeah.
And then me and John were friends, and I guess that's how I entered the friend group in grade 8, right? Through a couple other mutual people. Anyways, they would start to come to my house a lot during grade 8 and grade 8 summers, so we all got really close.
And we're talking like 15 people, like a big
Oh,
friend
it was a
group.
big group. It was a big
like,
group.
We're not talking
Wow.
like just 4 kids. Like,
It was,
yeah.
It was
No,
like
but
a
I'd
big-
say the extra 5 would come and go. There was like a solid 10.
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
still
So
huge.
Yeah,
huge.
still huge.
Imagine
Huge.
having that at your house every night.
Huge.
I was the number 1 Costco shopper, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They loved me there.
I swear we had like 3 Christmas parties there, New Year's, Valentine's
Yeah,
Day.
yeah,
It was the spot. When you guys moved, you were like, oh shit. Like I think actually afterwards, like we didn't. It was great that the friend group dissolved because we were like, where would we even hang out? I think we like just went to the
Yeah.
park in midwinter, bleak and cold.
It's kind of like that little like sitcom where you sort of you walk by the little pathway in and you kind of just like feel some like shiver. Like,
yeah, like
you
no,
keep
it's literally-
walking.
Yeah, you walk by like I could remember literally where you guys lived. Like I'd see the window and I'd be like, oh, like I remember so many times I'd walk by and see my friends partying in the window. And I'd be like,
And my mom would always drive through there to pick up Nathaniel, and it was like you guys had no snow cleaning in your area. Like your snow was always
That's
packed.
such a
It
random
was like-
thing
it
to
was like
remember.
It was like our minivan would like struggle so much.
Yeah, that
through
was
it,
a
so-
rough. It
so
was-
You'd think with
yeah.
all these boys at our house, they would help us with snow removal, but no.
you could have asked. We would have done it.
Okay, anyways, back on track. So
We incentivized.
okay, so from what I've heard in the past from other people, I was a catch in grade 8.
Well,
I guess
yeah.
there were a lot of football boys at our school, and we had just moved to a new high school.
Yeah.
Yo,
So
I'm reminded of a certain photo that we took in grade 8.
wait. Oh,
one with the
the
arm?
one with the dress. The one with the dress.
Do you remember? Shout out. To
Okay,
Shout out
since okay, since
Yo, there's something. Actually, no, I'll say it
Nah,
after.
okay, shut up,
Crazy,
shut up, shut up.
crazy.
Since,
You wanna share?
I mean, I don't.
Later.
Yeah.
Bro,
Keep
you're
going.
because you're gonna go down a tangent. since you did name drop him though, and you said you thought you were a catch in grade 8.
That's what everyone
So-
told me.
So basically, I don't know if I ever told. I think I told you this, but I remember at this. I used to always have this thing we would do, like since like we met like in grade 5. Like at the start of every school year, we would always look at like the list of
What the
the
fuck?
class
Objectification.
of the class to see if there's like any new female names that we don't know yet. Cause
No, that's actually
and
crazy.
then I remember super clearly we were driving to Bayshore to like pick out new clothes, and the thing is it was great because before when we were in elementary school we'd have to walk in, and the list on the name would be on the back of a chair outside, so it's kind of like it's in the moment, right? It's like click, you're like okay, go. But now technology, right? Google Classroom.
Oh
So,
yeah.
no, Miss had us added. The thing is, all the teachers are supposed to start the Google Classrooms in the day when you walk in and give you the code. But Miss was like such an ambitious teacher that she gave us the classroom like a week beforehand. So everybody joined. So we were game.
Yes. No, that's so facts. Actually, so nuanced, bro. In Google Class, you'd be like, "Who's in the class?" You'd be like, "Yo, Riz time." That's
And we all had profile photos, so you
Yeah,
can tell from the
yeah,
people
yeah.
with the photos
So-
who were like,
So I just remember we were driving into school in grade 8, and like, oh yeah, like this person's new, like Karyss, like I don't think I've heard her name. He's like, I think like, and we're like, yeah.
Oh my gosh, bro. You decided then and there.
he was like, set my mark
We're
right
we're
then
like-
and there.
We're like, what was
Be
that?
in
What
my
was that?
territory.
What was that? What was that Drake line? I'd do it.
Oh my god,
Bobby.
yeah, yo, Bobby's L top, bro, said I do it. Oh my god.
Okay, irregardless, we all formed
We're
a
just
friend
talking
group.
about like a podcast where
Yeah.
there was like a. Have you seen like the Drake podcast with Bobby?
It got deleted off of YouTube.
It did.
Yeah, they unfollowed each other. Basically, like Drake interviewed this random girl who came up.
No, this
made a
random
podcast.
girl interviewed
Yeah.
Drake.
Yeah, and they were like, she like has like the whole like gist is like she's like awkward on purpose, like she's playing this character, and she was like, "Sorry, you my type," and then Drake was like, "Yeah, I'd do it." Like I'd do it. That's so
Andrew
crazy.
in that moment was thinking of that podcast.
Yeah, he was connecting the dots forward. You know, he just has that
I
ability.
said it before Drake.
Yeah, exactly. Yo, what was the conversation that you had? Like you guys mentioned it across. It's so ominous.
Okay,
It's
so we're trying to get through. So grade 8 year,
Yo,
all of
I
this
was-
happened at the beginning.
You see, there's always external factors, right?
Yes.
You can't always look within you.
We
Oh, I
formed
couldn't
the
even see the context.
Okay, so anyways, we formed the friend group. Summer comes.
Oh, I think I know the conversation.
Yeah. Summer comes, and I think we're all at a basketball court or something like that.
Okay, so basically,
All you.
I asked out Karyss that night, and then she said yes, but then.
Actually, I'd like
it's
to
like you have
interject,
to-
and I
you-
said I'm not sure because I thought my mom would get mad at me.
Really? I heard yes.
I said, I don't know, and then everyone was like, do it. I'm like, okay, if my mom kicks me out, it's fine.
So what did you say, Gene?
So I guess you
Or-
came back home, and then you told me.
Oh yeah,
about-
you left. You
Yeah,
left my
she
house.
left.
I
Yeah,
left-
yeah.
I was like,
Well,
well, go
she
to
came
sleep.
home.
Yeah.
Everyone was going to bed. No, we did not go home. We drove down the street. I realized I still had your Tupperware from some sort of lunch.
So, it's like
So my
convenient.
mom's
Okay.
like, and I had told her, and I was really shy about it. And I'm not a shy person, but I was like, Mom, something happened tonight. And I don't know how to feel about it. So then she made us turn around to go give you back the Tupperware, quote unquote.
What was it from? Like,
I have
was it
no
like cupcakes? Or
I have
some
no
shit?
idea. It was
Okay.
something like that. Yeah. I think at that time I thought I was a baker. Anyways, we drove back.
I thought you were my
to-
girlfriend. So. You came back to give me the Tupperware from the bakery.
Okay, Tupperware, quote unquote, was really about the conversation, I think. And everyone else had left your house, if I'm not mistaken. I was the last
Right.
one there.
Yeah.
And she's like, Andrew, come sit with me on the curb for a second. And I was
Oh no.
mortified. I was like, there's no way this is happening right now.
So what'd you say?
Okay, let me just preface this that she's my youngest daughter, okay? So there are 3 girls ahead of her, but for some reason, all my girls were like, can I rightfully call you guys late bloomers?
Yeah.
I think there was just so much love and affection within the family that the girls didn't really look outside for like boyfriend affirmations, and so I had not really experienced at such a young age like romantic interest. So when she told me that this boy asked her out, and I was kind of like, okay, Andrew, which one's that? And like I remembered like, you know, but then because I only knew you, Andrew, from like a dance like connection, right, with my son. So I'm just like, Andrew, like, okay, just a minute. So we did drive.
Wait, why is that?
No, because nothing about you. It was just more like because you guys were so young.
Yeah.
That's all. Like, and of course, I dated when I was in grade 7, but that's besides.
That was a
They
different
don't
time.
tell you.
That was a different time. I'd also like to preface I went to a 60-kid private school until end of grade 6. And that was a class of maybe 4 or 5 people. So I didn't have the normal elementary school upbringing to where you are experiencing dating, kissing, flirting, picking out names from a list of girls.
What?
You guys are focusing on like actual school stuff, like learning.
Yeah.
We were doing that then.
So it was all new. It was all new. That's my point.
So anyways, so here we are going to Andrew's house, and I don't know how we decided, but I'm like, who's gonna knock on the door? Like, I want to bring this boy out, so I got something to say to him. So anyway, somehow you came out, and I didn't want to go into your house. I didn't want to put you in the car, so it make you feel like a trap. So I'm like,
Okay, I
let's
appreciate
sit on the curb. So you and I are sitting on the curb. It was getting dark at this point, right?
It was
And
dark, yeah.
I think I just kind of laid into it a little bit. Like I asked you, like, what are your intentions and what's your what is your definition of dating, and have you dated before, and is there anything that you like want to tell me about yourself? Like, I think it was just, and it was 45 or so minutes later, and I didn't know that we were having this like intense conversation. But anyways, I didn't want to traumatize you in any way, but I think
Thank
I
you.
was super impressed that you had an answer to everything I asked. You were not some dumb kid, kind of like, I don't know, I think she's just pretty, and like you legit had like solid answers of what you wanted, you know, what your vision was, and I was kind of like, oh my gosh, like, so I mean, I guess I was kind of, yeah, I had nothing more to say after, but I did realize that 45-minute talk, you know, kind of grilling you from your girl's mother was probably nothing.
Literally
else,
a couple hours
It's like,
after he
what's-
asked me out too.
Yeah.
What's that like that YouTube skit? It's like when you like if Dragon's Den was you like trying to sell a trip to your girlfriend or something.
I've seen that.
Oh, I seen that actually. Was it College Humor, bro?
Yeah,
So sick.
So I think I do get bonus points for opening the conversation up. Like I didn't say to her, absolutely not. You're not dating when you're gonna, you know. But I also
True.
respected you. Like I think it was like, let's hear from Andrew's perspective. And it wasn't my decision to make. Like I don't control my daughter's, you know, anything. It's like you asked her, she gives you an answer. That's between you guys. But as far as I was concerned, I just wanted to know, like, what exactly was your intention, like your experience with dating, and what did you want out of this, right?
What was your feeling in the moment?
I don't remember, to be honest, but
Fear?
no, I don't think I was fearful. I think I was like very
Just
I
that
think I was
guy.
just tired. I think I was very
Oh.
I think I was like so relaxed. I honestly felt quite relaxed. Like it was outside in the summer. Like it's like a
yeah.
like it's a good environment, you know?
Just
So
that guy.
so-
You're just Timothy.
so I was like yeah, I think it was pretty laid back. I mean, it's like it was the last day of school too, so I'm like there was it was always such a great feeling. Like no matter how much you think that could have been like a huge like laying it down, like back then on the last day of school, nothing could
You're
go wrong.
invincible.
You're invincible on the last day of school. So especially for me, because I grinded in school. So as you guys have
Of
clearly
course.
pointed out throughout this podcast in somewhat of
Yeah.
a condescending way, but anyways,
Yeah.
but yeah, I to be completely honest, I did go into a sales mindset in that moment.
Yes.
I will say I think I was also like I can't say impressed. I don't think that would be right, but I was more so like I was like, oh, like that's legit. Like I respected it. I was like,
It was confirming to see someone you liked had a normal family who was like protective.
yeah. Also,
'Cause if I had a crazy psycho mother, that'd be a
right.
whole different thing.
and I will say, yeah, you probably actually, you know what, to that point, like on something more kind of grounded, like I think to be this is so funny, but you probably actually set a standard for like mothers on like in-laws, not literally, but you know what I mean, right? So yeah, like you actually, now looking back, yeah, you definitely did set a standard in that moment of like what I typically expect and what I sort of accept and what I maybe for better or for worse often flock at. Like if somebody's telling me like, oh, my mother, you need to go. I'm like,
You always gotta look at the mom before you look at the gal.
well, yeah. But you're always thinking, well, you know this, right? Because in high school you were always thinking like, because now you know, right? It's like, you learn from that mistake. In high school, you're all, especially like in the earlier grades, you're always like, yo, like, the mother's gonna have to get sold too now, once in a while, right?
Yeah,
so, yeah, but I think I respected it a lot, and what I wanted to add to that is that I guess in the moment I didn't think this clearly, but in retrospect, in kind of like a funny tone, I'll say it's kind of like I was probably like, yeah, like it's Karyss, like what, like I should have expected this to happen, right? So right, well, yeah, all power to you. That I was like, I knew you well enough that it was like, okay, yeah, like I'm not gonna get the date that easily, and yes, but to be honest, it was beyond all the feelings, like in terms of like what I actually said, I don't remember, but I cannot guarantee the validity of it, because it was a sales mode thing. Yeah. Like I remember you said have you had a relationship before, and I don't know why, but I thought that the better answer would be to say no. So I was
you lied.
I remember being like no, this is like super new to me. Like I'm just trying to, because I think it's because like she didn't. I think it's because you knew that she didn't have a relationship before. So I in my mind, maybe I was wrong, but in my mind I was like, well, maybe she's like.
Who was before that?
What's that?
Who was before that?
Like bro, I don't want to like talk about relationships in like middle school. Like it's not real, but
I know.
But nonetheless, in that moment I was like, okay, well, yeah, probably like if I answer no, then that'll look better, because that means, there's like less progression along the line, right? So it's still
I would just like to
preface
that Andrew in middle school was quite the ladies' man. I have a vivid memory in grade 7 homecoming of a girl crying in the bathroom because he went to dance with someone else. She was a blonde. She was beautiful. And my best friend was crying in the bathroom. So that's all I knew about Andrew beforehand.
The Rizzler, bro. The Rizzler, man. I know. What the fuck? I have seen it.
I don't know. Well, I'm saying
she's on a boat.
What's that?
Do you have a boat?
She is always on the boat.
No, we don't.
Since then, it's been an inside joke.
That's the thing. I could have.
Yo,
in middle school it was easier because guys didn't have boats in middle school.
Now girls only want boats. If you have a boat, easy.
It's like how much.
Yeah. No, like my friend.
Boats.
No, my friend. This guy, like, do you remember? I'm gonna have to censor this. I'm gonna like this. Bro, like, you would think this guy's like has like, no, he has Riz, but like, I saw his Tinder. One boat photo, I knew that's exactly why he got all the girls.
No, the fishing photo for me is a red flag. The holding up of fish.
Oh my god.
Anyways,
all right.
We need to have another podcast about online
about
dating
like
and stuff.
That'd be great. I would love
crazy.
that.
Old stories. We have a million we could share, but yeah.
Okay.
Let's round that off.
Well, if it's not clear, I think we're all pretty glad that we know each other.
Oh,
so not only thank you guys for coming on to this podcast, but thank you for being a part of my life all this time. It's I appreciate your existence.
No, it was honestly a pleasure. Like, it was such a pivotal moment in our lives, of course, and it was always great looking fondly at those memories, and we talked about it a lot, and it was obviously such a fun time, and we have so many memories that we had with each other. But like, I'm so glad that you guys come on, so hopefully we can continue to be each other's lives in some way and look out for each other, because like as we were saying earlier, entrepreneurship is a lonely path, and it's really great to identify that we've come across people in our lives who also want to go the same route. So maybe we can share further in the future. But yeah, thank you guys for coming on, man.
Thank you so much.
I want to say that, you guys name me Mama Kim, so I'm going to take this Mama Kim moment, like, to say how extremely proud I am of each one of you. As much as, you say, oh, thank you for all the things that you did and whatever, like, that was not totally just, like, whatever. Like, I'm not a doormat, I did it because I truly enjoyed being with you guys and your presence, and I love that you were involved with my daughter's life and vice versa. It was family. It was family. Like, and like to this day, like look at, like, we're still in touch, right? Yeah. And now you guys are like pursuing your adulthood and becoming entrepreneurs, developing your character. Like, what prouder Mama Kim moment can I have than sitting here right now and just looking at the two of you being the future gentlemen of our society. So
we hope we can contribute. I honestly like one memory that I have of us is like I remember so like randomly like I don't know what was the occasion, but like Karyss and I were just hanging out, and then it was the first time that like I'd ever sat at a dinner table and said grace. So you're just like, yo, we're eating. You want to sit down? We have burgers. And like we just had a great. Do you remember that? We had like a great conversation just chatting over dinner. And then afterwards, I think we went out because like it was something about like something. And do you remember that night? Do you remember that night? We literally left.
Not picking this up now.
It was just. I remember we left that night and like we were with and her friend as well.
We're not picking.
It was insane. But yeah, like you know, like it's such an honor to hear that as well. Like. Andrew and I were talking about this, and you know, Andrew always refers to you when he talks about someone in his life who's believed in him, and for that, like I also like vicariously have so much respect as well, because obviously he's my best friend, but like, oh man, I'm losing it. But what I meant to say is that like, you know, it's such an honor to hear that as well, that like someone who's seen us before can say that we're on a good path. That's really reassuring, and for me, like, you know, I think for all of us, like, nobody hears that enough anymore. Like, nobody really brings each other up. I don't think that's rewarded enough. So, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge component of like leadership and affirming the masculinity. It's a really big focus of mine too, because I think a lot of that is watered down these days. Yeah. And that's a whole other podcast.
Oh yeah, and we agree.
I see it.
Yeah, well, you've been a source of that. Which is what I tell John.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you.
All right.
Wonderful.
Cool.
We're done.
Woohoo!
Thank you guys.